All right. Good evening, everybody. Those folks within the building and those folks in the ether. My name is Jeff Broadleaf. I'm the chair of the Southampton Village Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's November 9th. And by way of roll call, let me introduce the members, and then if we have a quorum, we'll open the meeting. So to my immediate left is Sarah Latham. To her left is Peter DeWitt. To my right is John Gregory. And to his right is Mark McIntyre, who is our newest member who sat in the audience previously. So whereas we have a quorum, I move to open the meeting. Do I have a second on that, please? Second. Okay. And on vote, please. All those?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Unanimous to open the meeting. Participating with us tonight and assisting the board is our legal counsel, Alice Cooley, our historic consultant, Zach Stutenroth, our recording secretary, Antoinette Edwards, and our videographers, Charlie Styler and Kat Styler. As I'm going to make it a habit for the benefit of the applicants and the public who may be viewing, I'd like to state and remind all of those and you the purpose of the board as it is contained in the code, and that is as follows. It is the intent of this article to establish procedures and design criteria necessary to preserve and enhance the character, historical interest, beauty, and general welfare of the municipality, and to ensure that the location and design of buildings, structures, and open spaces in the municipality shall aid in creating a balanced and harmonious composition of the whole, as well as in relationship of its several parts. With that stated and understood, let's begin with the minutes from the previous meeting, which was October, is it 26th or 28th, folks? 26. Has everyone read the minutes? Yes. I have as well. Are there any corrections beyond what was submitted? No? Okay. If not, then I move that we dispense with the reading of those minutes and accept them as submitted. Do I have a second on that? Okay, on vote, please. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. So the minutes have been accepted. Okay, I'd like to share with those who are listening what the process will be, which is we did this last week and it seemed to work well, and we'll continue to do it, which is that the applicant will have the opportunity to present on an uninterrupted basis their application. If we could keep that to 5 minutes, that would be great, but 10 minutes would be the max. We would then open it up for board comments individually, and then for the applicant to respond to that. After which there'll be public comment, which will include any reading of public submissions to the file, public comments by the attendees. Then the applicant will have an opportunity to respond, followed by board discussion, and I'll do my best to summarize it if it isn't already obvious by the board's discussion. And then, of course, action, which there are really two actions. Either we vote to approve or disapprove, or at the applicant's request to adjourn. So let's proceed with the first agenda item, which happens to be signs. We have generally signs we are relegating to a sign committee, and there was just one and that sign committee currently is Sarah and myself. I would like, and I'll put this to the board and we can vote on it, to hand over that auspicious title to John Gregory to work with Sarah on the signs, okay? And we can discuss and move on that later. But there was one sign from One Pond Lane. Do you have that file? Did they share it with you?
Came in
It
late.
might be a file, it might be...
It came by email today, I believe.
Do you have it? Okay. Oh, thank you. Well, this is good. See, you already signed committee. You demand. So, Charlie, you tell me where you want this so the public can see it as well. On the cat, thank you very much. Why don't you place these two there? This way Mr. Styler can get a good shot of that, and this way the board can see it as well. Thank you, John, for that.
Happen to have a
Okay.
printer nearby today.
You tell me when you get it, Charlie?
Right where that stuff is, Kath.
It faces, it has to face this way too, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yep.
You think I know?
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, straighten it out. All right, there you go.
Perfect.
All right, and then Charlie, if you can zoom in on it. Sarah,
Which one?
I would take the large one first, the whole scape. Do you want to share this with the board?
Sure. As a member of the sign committee, I thought that since this was such a prominent location and involved, I thought it was too big for a two-person committee and that it ought to be reviewed by the entire architectural review board. I happen to be willing to approve it, but I didn't want to stick my neck out without the rest of the board to look at it and to sign off on it.
Right. Now, does it say in there, and maybe Charlie, you can switch over to the one on the left, is that going to have any backlighting?
Yes.
recall?
it-
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to have some backlighting.
And that was my other inclination, to bring it to the entire board.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What do you think about that versus no backlighting? And is the backlighting,
Yeah, can't tell the nature of the backlighting.
It's in the drawing. So see it right there, yeah.
Can you read it aloud for the blind?
It looks like it's 2 inches off the face of the wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a 2-inch thick letter.
yes.
It's not so much the fact that it's illuminated, maybe to what degree it's illuminated. Is there a definition we can put on it as far as like illumination?
we did the first time, so.
That's what, yeah, I thought so, because we approved the lighting before yeah.
So now I'm wondering, because there is discussion on this,
Maybe we should.
maybe we should have CMAC come in and demonstrate the color, and he was very willing to do that before, and I think, given that this is under construction,
Yeah,
I don't
Yeah.
think CMAC would object to that. So, so I recommend that, to the extent that I can, Alice, adjourn this until the applicant can be present to share with the board the nature of the backlighting
Sure,
and
for
the relief.
further information.
For
Yeah.
further
Okay.
information. Okay.
It doesn't say,
Okay.
it doesn't say the light temperature.
Yeah, there's a rheostat on it, and again, CMAC was able to demonstrate it the last time. So let's just have them come in and do that. I think, and to Sarah's point, it's a prominent building. They've gone through a great deal of effort to retain its character, so let's give them the benefit of coming in on that. Okay, so that was the sign for
One Pond Lane.
One Pond Lane.
Did you get a second on that motion?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so unanimous. One Pond Lane, let me just write my notes here. Demo, lighting and relief. So again, on Antoinette, just include lighting and relief is what I'd like.
Lighting and
Relief,
relief?
relief, yeah, basically the distance from the wall of the building. And to the extent, and we can ask him, to the extent he can bring a sample letter, that would be ideal. But, okay,
It's pretty self-evident.
all right, we'll be speaking to him, I'm sure. Okay, so next on the agenda, folks, are written decisions. Alice, would you like to present the written decisions?
I wasn't planning on, but I
No,
can.
well, that's okay. No, in the past, Bo would say, we have a written decision, but you know what? We can very well do it. So we have, the first one is a written decision drafted by our astute attorney for Love Nest Trust, 28 Gin Lane for driveway gates. Has everybody had a chance to read that?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so, and as all decisions in the historic district require a written decision, we put that up to vote. So if there's no further discussion at this time, then I would like to move that we vote on the written decision for the application of Love Nest Trust at 28 Gin Lane for driveway gates. Do I have a second on that?
Second?
Okay, so on vote, ayes, please.
Aye.
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 Aye, unanimous, Antoinette, thank you. Okay. The next written decision is that of White Fence, Inc. for 409 First Neck Lane to restore a wraparound porch, replace and enlarge, relocate, and add windows and doors. And has everybody had the chance to read that?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on the written decision itself? No? All right, as there's no further discussion, then I will move that we vote on the written decision of the application for White Fence, Inc. at 409 First Neck Lane to restore a wraparound porch, replace, enlarge, relocate, and add windows and doors. May I have a second, please, on that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays, no nays. Antoinette, it's unanimous, thank you. White Fence, written decision approved. Okay. The third and final written decision is that of Bronze Box LLC, 11 Jobs Lane, to replace existing entry door and change color of the south porch columns and beam. Has everybody had a chance to read that?
One note on that one is the board actually approved the restoration of the door rather than the replacement. So that's what the determination says.
Okay, great. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. Okay. I was reading off the agenda. So it's really for the restoration of the entry door. Okay, thank you very much. And with that being noted, yes, and it does say restoration, thank you. With that being noted, I move that we vote on the written decision for the application of Bronze Box LLC at 11 Jobs Lane to restore the entry door and change color of south porch columns and beam. May I please have a second on that?
Second?
Okay, we've got 2 seconds. Does that mean that one of those is a third? In which case, may I have all those who are in favor say aye, please?
Aye.
Okay, any nays? No, so the ayes have it, it's unanimous. The written decision is approved. Thank you, Antoinette, for noting that, and Alice for doing those. Very nicely, simply done written decisions. Thank you. We will now move on to driveway gates. And before we take on the driveway gates, for the applicants, as in plural's benefit, as well as for the board's benefit, there's been much discussion about driveway gates and what the board is authorized to do and what its responsibility is. And driveway gates are essentially the same as any structure and fall under the duties of the board under Chapter 11633, which authorize the board. The board is charged with the duty of exercising sound judgment and of rejecting plans which, in its opinion, are not of harmonious character because of proposed style, materials, mass, line, color, detail, or placement upon the property or in relation to the spaces between buildings or the natural character of landscape, or because the plans do not provide for the location and design of structures and open spaces so as to create a balanced and harmonious composition as a whole and in relation to its several parts and features to each other. Okay. So, with that said and understood, I'd like to call the first driveway gate application relative to non-historic structures. So let me just put a note to myself here, hold on. Driveway gates, non-historic. And the first on the list is 11 Wyandanch LLC at, not surprisingly, 11 Wine Dance Lane. Okay, so, hold on one second, and let me get out your diagram. Okay, and this is this was previously before the board, so we have your affidavits in. And so if you could please tell us who you are and who you represent.
My name is Jeff Elise, and I represent the client as agent for said application. I presented at the previous hearing. It's very similar gate style. The board did object to its transparency and wanted to be a bit less opaque. So we reduced the solid bottom panel by a foot. We also removed a vertical member that ran through the middle of where it's now tongue and groove cedar. As far as the gate design itself, the board also did not like my line drawing, so I wanted to present a better, cleaner version. I don't know if you have that.
We liked it, it's just difficult to see, especially with foggy glasses.
Fair enough, fair enough. But there should be a cleaner version of the line drawing in the main file. But the style itself is not foreign to the village, of course. You'll notice that this particular style of driveway gate is apparent on Somerset. But once again, we're here to please the board, and if the board wants to offer any additional guidance as to what they like, we're all ears. My client is in love with this style. I did suggest maybe changing the style and see if the board would be amenable to a different style, but he does like this style and wanted to, at the very least, reduce the solid portions by at least a foot. And remove that middle vertical member, as I originally stated.
Board members, we'll start with our newest member.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
This is the drawing you're referring to, correct?
Correct.
Because the angle at the top of this drawing seems to be different.
It is, because
I'm
it's a
seeing.
line drawing, so I had one done more
Okay.
cleaner. This way you can kind of see that it's not, the dip isn't as far as it is on the line drawing.
Okay.
So actually, in that drawing, there's a little bit more mass to the gate than what I'm
Okay,
seeing.
good.
Correct.
Glad I
On
looked.
this particular
glad I
drawing, the
looked
dip
up.
is only a half a foot.
Okay, and this is about 1.5 feet.
Yes.
Right, so what's in the file? Is it the one that Jeff is,
This one, I think.
So it's not,
This is the packet drawing.
If you look in the general file, there should be this one in the general
it should be,
file.
huh? Okay, well, let's.
Yeah, this one came in
is
October
there- okay,
29th.
So we'll work off of that, thanks,
Oh,
Jeff,
sure.
for pointing that out. So, Mark?
And just to reiterate, because I know you weren't here the previous hearing.
I kind of
gate
was.
will be
I was sitting
on
there.
water. Oh, you were on site.
I was the quiet one.
The gate will be all white, a combination of cedar and AZEC material. The post also all white. The entire gate itself will be all white, which is once again maintaining the same color scheme that you'd find on Wyandanch, and of course most of the village, if not.
Mark, any other
No,
comments?
but, and just so we're clear, there's two sets of these gates, because
Correct.
because that house has a drive-through
Horseshoe
driveway.
driveway, yes,
Horseshoe
that's
driveway.
correct.
Okay,
There's going to be a set at the north side entrance and the south side entrance.
okay. I don't find it out of character with other things that I see on the street. I think, from what I saw last time, you have made some advances to make the gate less massive, which we appreciate.
Thank you, appreciate it.
John?
I think there has been progress made. I just don't think the full structure of the gate still looks like a barrier across the board. That dip just isn't, from my perspective, enough to make that much of a difference to where it was before. If that were lower and the dip were deeper, like many fences, as if, kind of how this was represented,
Back to the drawing.
this would be acceptable to me, but not what was in the file.
Sarah?
I'm in agreement with John. I
Okay.
think that, this, the one that I had, I was a lot more in favor of rather than, because of the dip
Okay.
and the reduction.
Peter?
I'm okay with it, except again, I thought we were trying to enforce our 50% transparency.
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
one is
Yeah.
solid.
Right, so transparency.
So,
All right.
I mean, I don't think it's bad looking, but
It's very solid.
it's solid.
So Jeff, let me summarize, although I think you get the gist of it. And I agree with them too, and when I was playing around with designs, one, I thought we were working with a lower dip as was presented in here. And then I too thought that as it's presented here, it will be, and it may technically be 50% transparent, but there's 50% transparency is not a hard and fast rule. And I purposely read, and this is again for the board's benefit as much as it is for anybody else's, that there's no hard and fast rule on transparency. You could go down on 4 acre, in part it's called the estate area, but right now practically everything is an estate in this village. Whereas in some cases there are wrought iron gates that have 90% transparency. There are 4 acre properties that have gates that are no more than 4 feet tall. So I'm in agreement with the board that the lack of transparency, that I believe the transparency and that street in particular could be enhanced by more transparent gates rather than less transparent gates. Again, it's a very open view and vista with, canopied by beautiful sycamore trees. And most of the houses are in some way or another visible. So we'd like to maintain that. So I think there are two things here. I'd like your client is in love with the style. I don't think anybody was objecting to the style so much as the way it's presented in the final drawing makes it more massive, more opaque than the board believes is appropriate or harmonious in this case to this street. And for me as well, and I think, some of the board members stated it as well, as to be scaled down. So you have 7-foot columns, and the gates almost right across, especially now without that dip. And in my view, I'm looking, I'm looking over your drawing, and we're not designing the gate for you, but you've heard it from a few people. More transparency, less scale either, and probably through a combination of decreasing its height, not only in the columns, but also in the span. So you can be creative as to how you do it. I mean, if your client is locked into that sort of very shallow dip, then it's gonna be harder to show more transparency. So it's up to you which one you wanna go with.
So, well, I believe my client might be open to a deeper dip, maybe instead of a 1/2 foot, maybe 1.5 feet. The solid panel, he does not like the pickets going straight to the bottom.
Okay.
He feels like it almost resembles like a zoo. He wants to add a little bit more character just
Okay.
to the gates.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, of course.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why we maintain the solid
Right.
panel.
Yeah.
That's fine with the solid panel, though. That means there has to be that much more of transparency on the balance of the gate, so.
Right, so and which probably means it has to be less in height than what's currently presented. So it's a balloon, you push on one end, something else happens, so you've got to do, so anyway, I think you've heard sufficient comments from the board to go back and design it.
If from my understanding, if we can reduce the size, that would be amenable to the board. Reduction in the dip also, and hopefully maintain some type of solid panel at the bottom would work. Clearly smaller than what we've proposed here. Okay.
Right.
So that provides a little bit of direction where I can kind of come back and offer up maybe a more appealing plan. Can I adjourn for, how many meetings do we have left for the year?
Well, I think there's only,
December, I
the
think.
next one, I believe, is December
December.
14th,
Yeah.
correct?
Um,
New applications
Yeah.
submit for December.
So
Right, is that correct, everybody? December 14th?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, do we have a motion to accept the applicant's request for adjournment to the next meeting?
So move.
Okay,
Aye.
okay. Aye, all those in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Okay, opposed? Nope. Okay. So Antoinette, we've got a approved motion to adjourn. Adjourn to December 14th. Thank you very much. And again, Jeff, as is the case, any submissions, although now you have plenty of time, have to be in no later than noon the Thursday before the meeting.
Correct. Normally, my submission was in time, but due to the comments you had about the line drawing, I wanted to make sure I at least bring in
Okay,
a more clear.
well, just, again, final, whatever you're gonna talk about in the evening has to be into the building department by noon on Thursday. Okay, great. Oh, okay. Now, I know from past experience, and the reason you're not moving is because I'm gonna call and you're welcome to stay, by the way.
Absolutely.
The application for driveway gates non-historic, is it Chai?
I'm Michelle, but it's Che is my husband.
Oh,
Vijay Singh is the
Oh,
last name.
Che and Michelle. Okay, for driveway gates for 150 Harvest Lane.
Yes.
And so while you were formally introduced, may you formally introduce yourself, and so Antoinette can take that down. So you are?
I'm Michelle Vijay Singh, and the owner of 150 Harvest Lane with my husband, Che Vijay Singh.
And standing next to you?
My name is Jeff Luis, agent for the applicant.
Great,
Do we have affidavits?
Yes, I do.
okay. Thank you, Alice. This is, even though you've been here before, this is a new submission.
Correct.
Okay. So let me do that. Thank you. Ladies and gents, there you go, there. Okay, so either one or both of you may speak.
We wanted to present a new plan to the board. This plan consists of very similar characteristics of what I just mentioned. Material-wise, this is going to be a cedar and a combination of AZEC material. Height of the gate will be 7 feet. At the lowest point, I believe, would be 3.1, which runs down the middle of the gate. This gate is as transparent as you can get when it comes to a gate this size. The columns also will be at the 7-foot mark. Setback 18 feet from pavement as per code, and also maintaining a clear opening of 16 feet. The pickets are going to be 2 by 2 inch, running from top to bottom. And I believe that does, I think that covers everything as far as the gate is concerned.
Michelle, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I just, obviously it's something that's important to us, which is why I'm here in person, and I thought it would be nice for you to hear from the homeowner directly. I don't know how many homeowners show up at these things or not. Something that we've definitely heard from Jeff in the past is the message around openness, especially for the street that we're on. And, one of the things that doing the renovation that we've done, we really tried to make sure that we lived up to the Hampton style, so that every decision that we made, from the shingles and the doors and the overall look and feel of the home, both externally and internally, was in keeping with that traditional Hamptons aesthetic. And one of the things that we loved about the village is, just the charm that the village has, and, seeing some of the gates on Moses that are actually styled very similarly to this one. And, you know, I know that there's a couple of other gates that are on our street that are different to this. And so what we wanted to make sure you knew is that we've really tried to listen to what the board has asked and make sure that this is something that is open and provides that, but still allows us to have the charm of the gate on the driveway.
Thank you. So we'll go in the opposite direction. We'll start with Peter DeWitt.
Glad it's more open. I think the horizontal, do we have to have that horizontal at the top? Can we just do a curve at the top? The curved style?
I'm sorry,
I'm
the
confused.
horizontal, you mean
No, below that, the midway.
this
Yeah,
one?
that.
From a structural perspective, I'd have to double check and see if we can.
Yeah.
But if there are no concerns, I guess Michelle.
Yeah, I think that's fine. It might just be there to help hold it up.
No, we don't want it to be
Yeah.
shaky, so.
Yeah, exactly. So,
And I understand we have to have gates, so I
Well,
can't say.
again, I read the criteria upon which gates, our duty, and again, it's, a lot has to do with the balance and harmony within the particular neighborhood.
No, I
the-
know.
Okay, so we'll continue on, and then I'll put my 2 cents in.
I would think that the removal of the horizontal, if possible, would increase the transparency, but if from a structural standpoint, that's not possible, I think you've done.
yeah, I mean, the first gate that we did submit did have a solid panel on the
Yeah,
bottom.
I remember.
Yeah. And, you know, at the time, the gate supplier, I don't know what to call.
Contractor?
Contractor,
Mhm.
you know, it said this is a very typical Southampton gate, don't worry, it's fine. And then, you know, it wasn't fine, so then we, went to like all open, and then we lowered it. So, you know, we're trying our best to be
You have been.
flexible.
You've made strides.
John?
Well, you know, I have in the same camp as Peter. If we are forced to allow gates, because
Again, gates have a right to be, but what they look like, what they're made of, where they are on the property, and the like, are all part of our duties. So,
my issue with the gate in this neighborhood is the fact that, and I drove around that street several times, maybe there's one gate in that entire area. And for that reason, whatever we can do to minimize the gate, I think it's out of character for the neighborhood, first of all, period. But with that in mind, there's no way to push it back or make it more,
well, is there? Of course there is. There's a driveway.
that's the issue, that it needs to be more distant from the street, from my perspective, because it just creates a barrier that does not exist anywhere else in the neighborhood. And I appreciate your desire with the house itself to be true to the character of the village. That's great. I believe the same thing. But this one thing kind of contradicts that in my mind.
Okay, Mark?
I would agree with my two colleagues at the end. I think if there is a way to take the horizontal support out and just give it a little less mass, it would probably just, that taking even more weight from it would make it a little more appropriate for where we are in this case.
Okay, so we can certainly,
Let me summarize, and then you can have it back. So we've got a few comments having to do with the design, most notably the horizontal,
Brace.
what's that?
Brace.
Brace, thank you, which makes it look more massive, and I use that word loosely, than it might otherwise be. and probably a little bit heavier than it perhaps should be to be in harmony. John raised the point of distance, and to be specific, I think, and Jeff, in your earlier hearing, you referenced a gate, I think it was 46 Harvest or something like that, 4656, don't quote me on the exact number. And I think it was pointed out at that time, well, that gate is 100 feet back from, or at least 50 feet back from the street. And, you know, and this is not to take you to task, Michelle, while the style might be typical Southampton, the fact is that gates in this village, in fact, we just had our historian look at gates, were not a fabric of this community. It's a modern addition. And so you start treading on saying it's typical, saying, oh, the village, it's in the fabric. In a lot of ways, it really isn't. But I'm not taking you to task on that. But I think it's a bigger issue that neighborhood has effectively no gates on the street. And that this will change the look of that neighborhood and make it less open. So in addition to the design change, the increasing of transparency, a reduction of scale, I would also like you to consider the possibility of moving it back. Your driveway goes back before you get onto the circle. It goes back about maybe 50 feet would be my guess, something to that nature. I don't know what the purpose of your gate is, and that has no impact on our decision. It's a matter of the view. And so what you're hearing from the board is gates are an anachronism to that neighborhood, but you can have a gate, but to make it harmonious, it should not be disruptive to the street view. So if you want a gate and you want to put it further back, I'd like you to consider that. If you want a gate, I'd like you to consider, and the board is asking you to consider reducing its scale, at the same time increasing its transparency. And so I think with that in mind, you're welcome to request an adjourn and think about it.
Well, before Michelle chimes in, it's probably my third trip here with
Yeah.
this particular property.
Yeah, no, the next time you come, we're gonna have coffee and donuts.
So we wanted to make changes that the board would be okay with, or at the very least, look and view with some level of acceptance, right? Now, referring to what gates are on the street, I don't necessarily want to rehash what we've already rehashed, but just want to clarify, there are gates on the street on Harvest Lane. 38 Harvest has a horseshoe driveway who has 2 gates. Now, the gate you're referring to is 46, which is set back definitely over 50 feet, but they have a long driveway
Right.
for that,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So with that in mind, we don't consider that to be out of the ordinary for this particular property, since there are existing gates, right? And I
But
believe
it
that,
is- Yeah.
Yeah, I believe in the last,
The two that you mentioned, yep.
you also stated that you don't necessarily go based off of precedent. So that's clear for us, which is why we came with a completely different design.
Right,
Doesn't resemble the original design we presented in the first 2 meetings at all.
right.
And is way more transparent outside of the concern with the horizontal member that runs across close to the top, which I think that we could probably work with.
Yeah, we can
but-
take that out.
Absolutely. And so from a structural perspective, if we can take it out, Michelle as a homeowner confirms that we can. But outside of that particularly, I'm not sure what additional changes outside of reducing the height. But Michelle, if you had any other words to say, you definitely say.
Yeah. I would say that, in reference to location, it becomes, sort of difficult because of the way that the driveway is, to be able to move that. And as Jeff was actually said what I was gonna say, which is 38 Harvest does have 2 two gates that are closed all the time, so I see them, you know, whenever we're there.
Out of how many homes, though? I mean, there are 30.
It's, yeah, to be fair, it's not many, which is why, you know, when we had heard from Jeff previously around some of the objections that we, you know, we wandered around, we took a look, and we, you know, we wanted to do that. I mean, we've had, you know, and like I said, this is something that is important to us. We've had, you know, strangers wander all the way down our driveway and all the way into the back, and
It's a whole separate issue.
you know, like, hello.
Again,
You know.
that's the purpose of the gates, and we've heard it all, and again, this is not to
Yeah.
diminish or,
Sure.
your desire to have a gate for whatever reason, but that's
Right.
not our purview. And so, in this case, and the fact that there may be one gate in a neighborhood, I don't even know whether that gate was approved or not, but it really doesn't matter. It's, you know, it's what's in harmony to the neighborhood as this board judges it. And so, and you're right, it's not precedent, whether it be of 1 or 10, doesn't necessarily impact it, because what we're talking about is this application at this property, at this location, within its setting. So you've got a few things going here. You've got a request to adjust the style, to issue of transparency, and the issue of location. So it's up to you as to what of those things you want to change. And we're not going to deny you a gate, but on the other hand, the board has to vote, there have to be 3 votes in favor of it. And you don't have that right now. Whether a different style in the same location may work, maybe, maybe not. Whether maybe I'm repeating myself, the same style in a different location or a different location and style, there are 3 things you can change. So therefore, there are 6 or 9 permutations of what you can do. That's for you to do, not for us to design. So, unless you want us to vote on it this evening.
Can I ask a
Sure.
clarification
Yes.
question? So just to make sure that I'm clear, so I believe, you know, the objection is this one, the horizontal bar,
In
which
terms of style.
is fine, that can go, as long as this, you know, I mean, and, or, you know, we'll find a different way to support it so we can increase the transparency and make it less bulky or
Right.
whatever. I'm not sure the right word, but yeah, so that's fine. We can all agree to that right now. In reference, your other 2 comments were location, which becomes, personally, I believe, extremely difficult to put it into a different location just because of the design of our driveway and the parking and, you know, some of the changes that we made to accommodate when we were first approved for this house. And then, I'm sorry, I'm a little unclear on the third thing that you
The
said.
third one was the size and the scale. So we spoke about the scaling, transparency, and location.
So when it comes to scale, I guess that is where I'm confused. So we're starting
Maybe
at,
the height or the,
yeah, so we're going down to 3 feet. I mean, I'm not sure,
But you're starting at 7 feet. So we're not going to design your gate for you.
no, I'm
yourself.
just trying to make
But-
sure I understand clearly.
So in a neighborhood in which there are veritably no gates, okay? Having a gate of this design, style, mass is, in the board's view, disharmonious. So, again, you know, we've been in, and I was just passing one on Toilsome. It's a 4-foot gate. It makes it with twice the transparency of this, and it's on a 3.5 acre lot, okay, surrounded by 3-acre properties, on which there are also very few gates. So drive down Toilsome if you wanted, but it's not even relevant. It's this house, this application, this gate at this property. So, and I don't want to belabor it anymore. Style, scale, transparency, location.
I just, on scale, sorry.
No, that's
No,
okay.
it's just, it's healthy to have the conversation.
Sure.
So, Your objection is the 7 feet, so if it went to 6 feet, is
Mo-
that,
No, my objection and the board's objection is the scale. That
Okay.
in a neighborhood, and this is, then we do
Yeah.
have to move on, Michelle.
okay,
In a neighborhood where there are no gates, having a gate of this scale, with this design, with this level of transparency, at this location, is viewed by the board as as disharmonious. So there are 4 things, not 3, that you can work on. And again, you're welcome to come back as often as you want, okay? Until we find something that works for everybody.
And I'm not sure if all the board members.
It doesn't matter. You need 3
Correct.
votes, and you don't have it now. So let's ask for the
So,
adjournment, if I
Before
may
we continue,
suggest. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case. Mark stated that.
If you want to risk a vote now,
Mhm.
we can poll the board. You've heard their objections, so we either take a vote now, or you request an adjournment. I think it's your choice.
Sure, we'll adjourn.
So,
Peter,
I just want to say one more
Yeah.
thing about gates. You know, it looks like we're stuck with them until there's a new law, which will not save us. May I suggest that we think about, in these neighborhoods where there are no gates, and I'm sorry, one across Fox Hollow towards McGee, it's not contiguous to your little loop. There are no gates in this neighborhood as far as I'm concerned, except for those 3 which are across Fox Hollow and therefore distant. If we're gonna start a whole precedent, can we at least make a precedent for 4-foot-high gates? Maybe Pete to stop coming in with 7-foot-high gates. I think that might,
we can discuss this at the trustee and the board level, but as the code is written now,
I'm sure they're allowed to have a 7-foot gate, that's a God-given right?
Peter, in all fairness, there are not defined restrictions for gates. We have a significant amount of authority, and a significant amount of responsibility to use our judgment to determine whether a gate, whether it be 2 feet, 4 feet, 6
Yes,
feet, or 8
yes.
feet, whether it be wrought iron or AZAC, is appropriate. So, the trustees, and we can take this up at some other point,
No,
but let's not take everybody's
Yeah.
time on it, to define what gates should be. And that's always,
But by
And it's-
definition,
I
a
just
gate
wanted
could
to
be a brick
offer
wall,
that-
or it could be a metal pole going across the
Okay,
driveway.
so
I
guys,
want to offer as, you know, perhaps some of us would be less we would object less if it were a 4-foot, or if it were a lower gate.
well, I
That's what
think.
I'm trying to-
I think that's totally possible.
Okay, so I think what we are sharing with the applicant is that its scale is excessive for that neighborhood. Whether you come back with a 2-foot gate or a 4-foot gate, we'll see that design when it comes back. That's why I say, you're welcome to come back as many times as you want, until you get 3 people who agree. So if you make minor changes, you risk the fact that it may not be enough. So anyway, guys, we've given you enough food for thought. I heard you request an adjournment to the next meeting, and so, yes, Mark?
So moved.
Oh, okay.
I'm jumping you. Sorry.
Good. So I have a second on that,
Aye.
and
Aye.
all in favor? Aye. All right, thank you,
Okay,
Michelle.
thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Jeff.
Nice to meet you.
So hold on a second, so scale, transparency, location,
Yes.
Dixie Torrelson is the next
Wait.
application.
what were the 4 things I said? Scale, transparency,
Hurry, hurry, hurry.
location. Oh, design. Okay, thank you, folks, for bearing with me. Okay, so that is 150 Harvest. Yes, I'm going to try to. The next one, is we're still on driveway gates, is that of Joe Robbie. Did I pronounce that correct?
Yep.
Okay, for 60 Toilsome, for driveway gates.
Correct.
They have the
So,
benefit of hearing
now,
everything we talked about.
hold on a second.
Getting taller.
Gates, and who do I have the honor of looking at? Who's behind those masks?
I'm Joe Roby,
Hi, Joe. So that's Joe Roby. You are presumably the owner
owner,
of the...
yeah. mhm.
Okay. And next to you, this other man in a mask.
I'm Michael Marin from East Hampton Fence and Gate.
Michael. Okay. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Affidavits.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the affidavit.
Darn.
I'm just
The
like
affidavit, thank you, Alice.
No, it's giving you
I have it.
Oh, okay.
Peter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you could bring it over.
Michael?
Yeah, I can pass it.
Okay.
It goes, the file is down here, sorry.
Are we good? Okay. That's a good housekeeping seal of approval. And there you go. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Peter. Okay. Joe or Michael, it's your floor.
Okay,
Well-
thank you. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, I was just gonna say, we all have the drawing, and for the sake of all those folks standing outside in the parking lot, in the last application, you've hashed it all out. So we have a drawing of a somewhat similar gate. And, you know, frankly, for this property and for many of these taller gates, it's all about the deer. You know, and I know that the board doesn't want to understand what's driving this, but there's no doubt about it that these taller gates are driven by folks that are trying to keep the deer out of their yard. And that's the case with this design. The gate does have a little bit of solidness on the bottom. We're basically mimicking the garage doors that have a similar 3-panel, and the gate is viewed at the same time as the garage. It is fairly close to the street. The house is close to the street, and there's really no other place to put a gate except, right lined up with the hedges.
Joe, did you want to add anything to that?
No, just to affirm what Michael was saying, we've got, in spite of the fact it may not be your first consideration, we do have a serious deer problem on that road. We've had, 6 or 7 deer in our yards at the same time. And those deer would laugh at your 4-foot fence. I mean, just
That's,
forget it. I mean,
that's
not-
neither here nor there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know it's not, but I'm
But
just
it
telling
is
you,
true.
there are
Yeah.
some realities in the world that might enter into a conversation at some point.
Right, right.
But in any event, that's the motivation for putting in the
Oh.
gate, obviously.
I appreciate that, and I also appreciate you recognizing that for every person has their reason for installing gates, and our duties are limited to what is seen from the road and visual and aesthetic view. So that's our purview, that's our responsibility, and that's where our authority lies. So, with that being said, let's start with John, and then we'll move over to Mark.
Obviously, you have, right to have the gate. I understand the deer problem because I have them in my yard as well, but that's just life in Southampton. I just think the gate is just, it looks too much like a blockade to me, as opposed to, it interrupts the openness of the streetscapes. So that's my issue.
Mark?
My first concern is that the posts are so much higher than the gate, which is increasing the visual mass of it, to me. And again, I think even with the solid panels on the bottom, it's still a fairly non-transparent gate for where it's located. And I also understand there's been much conversation before on this, of which I wasn't present. So that'll throw to you.
Sarah?
I would like to see more transparency. I believe that the bottom is too opaque, and I think that there could be strides made to open up the bottom.
Just, am I allowed to ask a question here?
No, just because we're trying to follow a process, unfortunately,
Fine.
you weren't here. So we're giving you folks a chance to speak uninterrupted, then the board, and then you can rebut. Okay, Peter?
I agree that it's tall. If it could be 7 feet, which is the height of the center rail of the, or stile rather, the post, I would find less to object to. And yes, it would be nice if the bottom were more transparent. I mean, one thing about, this, it is a wide property. And it's a substantial house. So it's not, I don't think it's terrible. I think that it's there is not terrible.
My comments reflect those of my fellow board members, as well as looking at, and you probably heard it, because I was referring to some other properties on Toilsome, and I think it's 152 that has a 4-foot picket that if it's 80 or 90% transparent, it's probably at least that much. And then there's another one on 152 that is also relatively small scale. So I would basically reiterate the comments from my fellow board members. Joe, Michael?
Yeah, can I just ask a couple of questions? Because
Sure.
I'm not familiar with how you all operate, but if we were to just to make the whole gate up, the picket all the way down to the bottom of the gate, does that solve that problem? That solves the problem? Okay.
It solves the problem of opacity. However, it's still in my mind, when I look at the other gates on the street, that it's still a large gate on a street that has very, very few gates. And I think it's not only disharmonious, but it's an unfortunate loss of open space. And while the deer may laugh, something of a smaller scale, I believe, is more appropriate for that neighborhood.
Am I allowed to ask what smaller scale means?
Smaller scale is, like I referenced a gate next door that I think, I haven't measured it exactly, but I don't think it's much more than 4 feet tall. But we can't, and Joe, I know you said you don't know the process, and that's for good. So we can't actually design, we can't tell you it should be 3.5 feet, but what we have our vote is either to approve or not approve. So in this case, and you need 3 approvals. And in this case, issues have been raised about scale, transparency, and I'm sorry? Okay, and harmony with the few other gates that are in the neighborhood. And again, so if you want to come back with a fence exactly, or gate exactly like this, but with the bottom panels, you'll see if the board members approve it. Personally, it wouldn't get my approval, because I think the scaling is still too large as it is. But I can't tell you what the right number is.
Gosh, I mean, it's sort of like a game of semantics here. I mean, there are gates like this, hundreds of them around town. I'm not talking,
Right.
there must be, I bet there's 1,000 gates similar to this.
Well, in as much as there aren't 1,000 properties, or if there are 1,000
not in the
properties,
village, but-
I know.
okay, in the
I
village
realize
proper,
that was a rhetorical
my
comment,
goodness,
but
My goodness, that there, I mean, maybe not on Little Toilsome. There aren't
well,
similar gates.
There you go.
My
there you
goodness.
go. You just said it. So we deal with what's relevant.
Well, what I
to the
meant by that
neighborhood.
was.
Well, what you
no,
meant
no,
is what you
jumped-
said.
Whether the street is short or the street is long in length with the same name, I don't think has anything to do with the point that I'm making. If the streets did not have any names, within 10 blocks in either direction, and the further you go down towards the ocean.
But 10 blocks in
number
either
just
direction
increases.
becomes another neighborhood. Because you also have to take, you have to take into
I don't
consideration
want
the
to
actual.
belabor the point here.
My point is that there's an awful lot of gates if you were to drive around and count them.
We know.
Yeah,
Here we
yeah.
have- So,
Yeah.
so again,
But to say that
we're
there are not tall gates like this,
we're
I
not
think
saying
is,
that.
I think
We're
is just
saying,
not.
we're looking at this,
Okay.
and gentlemen, let's move on here. you could find an example of any style, any variation of anything in any one part of the town. Our view is is this neighborhood, okay, and this streetscape. And when we do streetscapes, just for your edification, it's maybe 3 houses to the left, it's 3 houses to the right, it's the house across the street. And Michael, you can, show me gates elsewhere. It's not relevant. So, I appreciate you pointing it out, but what we're looking at, shoot, I thought that was off. But we're looking at this application, and this application in reference to the houses nearby. So.
I would like to respond to that. I'm just looking at my map here to refresh my memory. But you go just around the corner on Foster Crossing, there are 1, 2, 3 gates exactly
So
like this.
cross it-
On Foster Crossing
Foster-
itself, am I allowed to
Yes,
point
sure.
out that?
Mhm.
On Foster Crossing itself, there are 1, 2, 3 other gates, just like this, 1 street away.
But it's not
And
toil
and on
Well,
Little
hold on.
Plains, there
It's
are.
not Little Plains.
On Little Plains, just around the corner on the west side, there's almost the same exact gate. On Foster Crossing, there are 3 gates that are almost identical to that, 1 street away. And if you go to South Main Street, you have to have you run out of fingers to count the
Okay.
gates that are almost identical to this, 1 and 2 blocks away.
So, Michael, I'm not gonna argue with you as to whether those.
No, I just
one-
want to make sure we're talking about facts.
We know, we go we walk the streets all the time.
Gentlemen, so here's
Yeah.
where we are. We're talking about this application. You need 3 votes for approval. We're looking at this application on this street. If you want to provide us a streetscape of 3 houses to the left and right, okay, and the houses across the street, we'll consider it in that context. But,
3 houses on
but
each
Michael,
direction?
Michael, please, I'm
It's normal.
Okay, gentlemen, so we're looking at, as I've said a number of times, we're looking at this property, this application, and this gate in reference to that streetscape. And currently, and Michael, if you want to, I wouldn't argue more tonight, but if you want to come back with the same thing next week and make the same argument, you can. But right now, it doesn't appear to be compelling to the board, and because it isn't, we're looking at this. So I appreciate your interest. Would you like an adjournment, gentlemen?
Sounds like a ban on driveway gates to keep out the deer to me.
No. This board just approved driveway gates. That's, you said you want to deal in facts. We approved driveway gates. So, but not this one, the way it's presented here. You're welcome to come back, or you're welcome to have us vote on it tonight. Which would you like?
We'll take an adjournment.
So, I move that we accept the applicant's request for adjournment until the next meeting, December 14th. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No? Okay. So we'll see you on the 14th. Any resubmission has to be in the Thursday before by noontime. And as we've experienced tonight, and we do that so the public has a chance to see it, and if it's not in by that time, then we can't hear your application. Okay? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
I happen to have another application.
Right, well, when we call it, let me just take some notes. Okay. So, hold on a second. So this is adjourned
Might as well get it over
to
with.
the 14th. So return to the 14th, and this is, okay, so we are on to the next gate, non-historic driveway gates for DMDC Holdings LLC at 128 West Prospect Street for driveway gates. And, Michael, even though we know who you are, introduce yourself and provide Alice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Michael,
East Hampton Fence and Gate for Dorian Virgos, 128 West Prospect.
okay, you've got the floor.
Well, we've got a very similar gate. Similar to the one before, a little more plain. Obviously less transparent. I wish I could say it was driven by me, but these things are not driven by me, they're driven by the homeowners. And these homeowners very much want to have a little more privacy from the street and have a gate that, that little old West Prospect Street, I've been there a few times and I'm surprised how busy it is. The cars really zip through there. And so the client is looking for a little bit of privacy and screening from the road. There's really nothing across the street. The Long Island Railroad tracks are just to the north. And these clients would probably say exactly the same thing the two other gate applications before us, that if they were here, they would say they very much want this gate and they want it to be attractive and in keeping with their house and the neighborhood. And they feel very strongly that it is. So, in anticipation, someone had said to me that there aren't any tall gates like this in this neighborhood. And I said, yeah, I've heard that before. So I decided to go have a look for myself. So I found that there are quite a few gates exactly like this. Here's one on 1 block away on 157 White Street. It's the same exact gate that the Robies presented.
Continue, I said uninterrupted.
157 White Street.
Yep,
Same
yep,
exact
yep,
gate.
yep. I'm familiar with it.
That's 2 blocks away. Here's a 6-foot-high gate with brick pillars on 150 Breeze Street. Here's a gate on the corner of 139 Moses. And there are similar gates at 138, 148, 136 Bishops has 2 gates. That's 4 blocks away. And as you go south on Hill Street, there are 40 gates on Hill Street.
This is nowhere near
Yeah.
Hill Street, but.
We've
Well,
done.
it's a couple blocks south. Here's
We'll let
one,
you
here's
continue
one
on
2
that.
blocks away at 121 Moses. Tall, a little more transparent. Here's one at 127 Moses. Here's one just across the corner at 18 Pelham. That's solid on the bottom and
So
bars on the top.
you're telling this board that that is just across the street? I just want to make sure.
No, I
you-
said just around the corner.
Just around the corner from this one, on Pelham Street. So I just want to make sure, because you were the one who said you want to deal with facts.
There's really nothing across the street because it's railroad
No,
easement.
no, I just want to make sure, Michael, that you're allowed to make your statements, but please, let's deal with facts.
Well, let me look at the map. I'm not an
No, I can
expert
tell
on
you the
that
map.
neighborhood.
Continue on with your statement, Michael. You've got a couple more minutes.
It's a couple of blocks away.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Well, this application happens to be quite far west on West Prospect. This gate on 18 Pelham is 1, 2, 3.
Between
it's
North Sea
four-
and
it's
Halsey
4
Street.
blocks, it's 4 very short blocks away. It's probably 1,500 feet from the application. 3 very short blocks away. Here's a driveway gate at 76 Prospect Street. Actually has 2, has an in driveway and an out.
So let's look at those.
Here's another driveway at 123 White Street, 6-foot-high gate with some big columns. little more transparent, but here is, if you go just on the other side of west of North Main Street, a little bit, same situation, up near the railroad tracks, one street from the railroad tracks, 107 Pulaski, with the exact same gate that the Robies have presented, with solid on the bottom and bars on the top.
Wait, are we talking about the Robies, or are you
which
talking
case
about
you're
the
discussing?
107 West Pulaski Street, and it's very similar to the gate that I'm submitting for Dorian Virgos at 128 West Prospect. It's almost the exact same gate, almost in the exact same
So,
scenario.
in the sake of time, Michael, can we wrap this up?
Sure.
You're welcome to make your statement.
Yep. But since we know what the answer is,
No, you don't know what the answer is, because I haven't polled the board.
well,
So, are you complete with your statement? I will assume.
yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay.
I think
So let's hear comments from the board. Peter?
Well, Michael's not wrong about predicting my reaction. We can, I think, at least make it more transparent, and can I suggest that you make it not a 7-foot gate, but a lower gate? There are no gates on West Prospect that I saw today.
just at 70.
Yeah,
There's actually one.
There's one? Okay,
Okay,
that's all.
okay, so more transparent. Okay, Sarah, we'll go that direction.
I would also encourage more openness, less opacity, and, maybe lowering the sides a little bit, but my main concern is to be able to continue the pickets, for want of a better expression, down through the opaque bottom.
Okay. John?
Oh, I agree with Sarah and Peter. I mean, believe me, I understand the traffic on that street, because it's symptomatic of a lot of areas in the city, but I'm all for treating the cause and not the symptom here, but that's a whole separate issue that I would hope residents could attend to. But with this fence and in this area, I think, actually, the fact that there is no property across the street, I think there's room for a little more leeway, but the transparency needs to be addressed. I think it should be brought down a little bit. The bottom block is it's too much of a blockade, a barrier, as opposed to a gate. So it's not that there's a problem with having a gate, it's just that it should be, keep the neighborhood in mind,
Okay, Mark?
I'm in agreement. I think it's too foreboding. I would like to see a lot more transparency. I also think it's, on a massive scale, it's too much for that neighborhood, and I also think the left and the right side should be symmetrical. So it's the way you've drawn on the right side and the left side, they're actually not symmetrical.
And the pier is actually a little thicker than some of the others we've seen tonight. It's a 1.6 versus a 1.4.
And I think it could come down in height, because I don't know if deer can jump 7 foot 6 inches.
What's not symmetrical?
If I look here to here, these are different sizes. I don't understand.
Oh, I see the bottom boxes. I guess that's just the drafter.
Oh.
The architect's drawing. I see, it's just, yeah, there. Gotcha.
Are there any, so I don't think there's a need for me to summarize, because I think each of you said pretty much the same thing. I will add one more thing, which is, are these automatic gates, and if so, is there going to be an external box?
Yes.
Okay, I would request that it do not have an external box. That is surely disharmonious to a street through. So to the extent that you use some sort of, I don't know, automatic gate that opens based on lights, or if you put the code, or whatever the hell you call it, into the column, that's fine, but no external I don't know what the hell you call those things.
Keypads.
Keypads.
Keypad and post.
Thank
so
you.
when
That's a
the
very
car
technical
pulls up,
term.
it's kind of on the driver's side, so the
Yeah.
driver can.
All right. So, Michael, I hope you have enough information to come back with a new design.
Yeah, and I hear you. The client and their architect actually designed a even more solid to start
Right,
with.
I appreciate
And
that.
we submitted that, and the folks in the building department downstairs wouldn't even accept the application until we made it less transparent. So we did,
So
and
East Hampton Fence, presents here quite a bit. I just think it might be helpful if they understand the point of view of
yeah.
the
and
ARB in
that-
advance.
And that's what I was gonna
yeah,
touch on.
but you
That's
have clients and architects
Right,
who
well,
tell us,
But that just,
we want this,
Right.
we want this, and
just
they,
wastes everyone's time then, including
Yeah.
theirs.
so,
it's
yeah.
not driven by us,
I know
believe me.
that.
No, I
The
know.
client and the
But it-
architect tells you, we
Yeah.
want this, and
So-
you go do it.
we'll move on, but I think part of the message that you may have heard from these applications that you've sat in on is that, in fact, the very thing that your client is looking for, which you mentioned, is privacy. That's the antithesis of what this board is trying to create in this community that once looked like this. We understand times change. At the same time, this community has evolved to a hedge community, and we're trying our darndest, with the support of the village and the trustees, to make it as open and as inviting as possible. So to the extent, Michael, that you're coming back before us, and we welcome you very much, we welcome the owners of this property into the neighborhood, but to the extent that you can communicate to them the philosophy of the village, then I think, whether you call it wasting everybody's time, I'll just put it more as, we can be a little bit more efficient, and you know what, we'll come to a better conclusion with less acrimony.
We try,
Okay,
but you
all
have,
right.
you
I know.
there's a
So,
strong demand for these gates, and
Thank
it's
you.
not coming from me.
all right, so,
Thank you.
did we already vote on?
No.
No. So I heard you requesting an adjournment.
Yes,
So I
please.
move that we accept the applicant's request to adjourn to the next meeting on December 14th. And again, Michael, so that any new submissions have to be in the Thursday before by noon to be heard. And so do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, and all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? No nays, so Antoinette, it is approved. Thank you, Michael, I appreciate your
Good night, thank you.
time. Okay, so, adjourned. Okay. So, driveway gates historic, all right. So, our next application, applicant is for, I'm just looking at two scales here. That of William and Scarlett Robertson for 445 Hill Street.
Evening to the applicant, John Bennett. You referred the matter to Zach. I'm just interested to see what Zach has
Yep,
to say.
was it not, we submitted to the file, so yeah. So John, as a matter of fact, I thought you might have gotten, because it was put into the file. And
Oh, great.
I'll give you this copy, this is my copy, you can give it back to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, let's see, I don't know if I want to read the whole thing verbatim, unless Zach does. Zach, do you want to?
No, not verbatim, certainly.
Oh, we love it when you read.
Well, no, I'll try to remember. So this is Hill Street, which struck me as being an interesting study area, so to speak. So I studied the length of Hill Street and its gates and its piers, entrance piers. Two separate but very interesting ethics, and there are approximately equal number, as it turns out, of each of these. And I think the number was approximately 40, if memory serves. Sets of gates
Yeah,
and sets of piers.
21 pairs
Oh,
of driveway
okay.
gates, 22 piers.
Right, okay.
Interestingly enough, they tend to be clustered at one end or the other. There's actually a kind of long stretch of Hill Street in the middle where there's not too much of this. And it's also apparent to me that this is a fairly recent ethic, this driveway gate thing. So it tends to be associated with the more newly built houses on Hill Street, of which there are quite a few that have infilled the lots. So I was just trying to get a sense of the context of the appropriateness of driveway gates to the specific houses in that neighborhood in the historic district, as opposed to these others that we've been seeing, which is more of simply a design issue. And it seemed that the driveway gates typically are associated, this is not a scientific poll, but this was a windshield survey, as we say, that they are associated with the newer homes, and that piers are associated with the older ones that tend to mark the entranceways, but don't form this sort of barricade to the property. That's my initial, observations.
So, Mark, you're the newbie. Thoughts? Oh, I'm sorry, John, did you want to make a statement or present?
No, I'm interested, I'm hearing all this stuff about neighborhoods and stuff like that, and I don't want.
Oh, John, I'm sorry.
I'm hearing everything about neighborhoods and all that stuff, and I don't wanna fight everybody's battles, but it's quite clear to me, until the village changes the law and says in certain areas you can't have these gates.
Right.
Question is not whether or not they're allowed, the question is, your input on what they look like. So what we've tried to do with these gates is to make them very similar to gates that you find throughout the historic district. Wide open, it's not even close to 50% opaque, and very minimal spindles, or whatever you want to call them. And I think that's actually a foot less than the allowed height for the columns, which, by the way, were there. They're shown on an old survey. I don't know, to be honest with you, whether or not they were there. I mean, they've been there. They were on the survey when she purchased and everything like that. But let's assume it. Just look at the whole package.
Right,
That's fine.
right.
So I think they're more than adequate. They're not aggressive. They're
Okay. That is your statement. That's the shortest statement from Mr. Bennett.
I mean, they're like vanilla ice cream, So what am I gonna say?
Mark?
I'm going to abstain from commenting on this one because I feel like there's history here.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
I believe there's history to this pre-me,
Oh, okay,
this decision.
okay.
By the way,
John?
for the record, I have never have an objection to someone familiarizing themselves. It's your call, of course.
Yeah.
I never have an objection to anyone familiarizing themselves and looking at the videos, because, but anyway.
Yeah, oh boy. Just as a general matter overall, I think, gates is something it's something very serious that we need to consider in the village because of the attempt to maintain the openness and the historical character. But in this case, if the fence has the adequate transparency and isn't overly imposing on the site, I don't know what more I could say.
Sarah?
I was wondering whether they need to be in the present location, whether they could be set.
They conform.
I'm sorry?
They conform.
Right.
They
But,
don't have
but,
site
but,
plan approval.
but-
They conform.
but at the same time, yes. So you're saying they conform. The
They conform, but I-
question,
My question was, could they be set back? into the-
Your responsibility and oath requires you to vote on the application as presented. You have no site plan authority. They conform in terms of location, height,
right,
and that.
right.
So,
So, but.
We're not offering to move them.
Right, that's the point. So the board has its vote. Its vote is subject to the judgment that include a number of things, which includes placement on the property. And so your question, I think, phrased differently, well, actually it was, would the client be willing to move it back to get your vote? Maybe that's, and I don't know if that's the quid pro quo. And John Berry is responding that that's not on the table from his
No,
standpoint.
I'm responding, it's not within your purview.
I understand. That's your statement, and we have our duty as prescribed by the code.
Well, I thought we had placement, I thought we had some control over.
No, you don't.
Okay, again, that's the applicant's.
You've been, who told you that?
Wait,
Were you
wait,
conjuring that out of thin air?
John, the process is that we've given you your chance for a statement. We'll hear the board, and then you can rebut, So the
Right.
applicant has made a
I just have a
statement.
thought. Along the west side of the driveway, there's a hedge that goes back about 100 feet. And I wouldn't object to the gate being at the house side of that hedge, moving it back.
So,
So you're stepping outside
so,
of the
so,
purview.
All right,
John,
well-
John, please.
I don't know that. I mean, you can,
I'm telling you.
Right, right.
Council-
Perhaps we could ask our
Right,
council. rather
so,
than-
well, let
Yes.
me just continue on. So, as one of the 5 members of the board, my view on this, and actually it's interesting, what caught my eye was not the gate itself, because the gate in one form or another had been there for the 15 or so years I've been here.
Post, you mean.
But I think there was a gate there, was there not?
I don't know.
Yeah,
There were posts there.
okay.
The post predate.
But you know what caught my eye, John, is the gleam from the gleam from the metal, the gleam from the
Right.
metal.
Why don't you approach so you can hear if that's an issue?
No, he can sit while I'm talking, he just can't,
Yeah,
he just can't talk when I'm talking.
He
and
said he couldn't hear though.
Well, that's my mumble and a mask, and between the two of those, you're lucky if you hear anything. But thank you, John. So, yeah, my concern more than anything else is the material. And,
By
you
the
know,
way, my
if-
client may not like what I'm about to say, but if that's a concern, and it's a gleam, and it's a metallic as opposed to wooden, they may have to live with that.
Right.
Listen,
Okay, so you've got a few concerns here. You've got a concern about location, you have a concern about material. Did I miss anything? I don't think there was concern about transparency or the view of this historic property,
No,
was there?
no, at this point,
No.
no.
So those are the two concerns, and it's your chance to rebut, John.
if you want, are you hearing, or am I hearing that you'd like the gates changed to wood?
That was my particular issue, I don't
listen,
know, about,
if if that's what the consensus of the board is, and the client doesn't like it, they'll have to lump it, because I think that's within your jurisdiction. The rest of the stuff that has been brought up is not within your jurisdiction. I'm a very fair person, and I tell the board tell my clients this board has a set of rules. When I get my dander up is when those rules are not being applied, and people are applying rules that don't exist in the code. I don't know if you guys have ever watched that movie, The Big Lebowski, but at one point the guy says, "Smokey, this is not Vietnam, there are rules." That's sort of what I feel like here sometimes. So you can't it's not a subjectivity is what is to be avoided in the law. You have a set of rules. As I'm very candid with you, if you'd say that you don't like those gates because they're metal, and I can understand that, there's refraction, install and stuff like that. Again, my client may not like it, but if they have to go from metal to wood, that may be what has to happen. But they're all dimensionally conform, and they conform with the types. So I don't know what else to say to you guys.
Given the concerns that have been expressed, again, we need 3 positives.
I wouldn't mind hearing from our council. I feel like we've been.
As to location,
Mhm.
I don't know if I agree with Mr. Bennett on that, but I will say in this instance, given that there were existing posts, you're pretty tied to that location.
Well, from a practical standpoint, but you could also, as Zach was saying, posts are part of the fabric.
The tiers may be, but not,
Tiers.
not the
Yeah,
fence.
those
Or
are
not the gate.
typically, they don't appear somewhere down the driveway. Those kind of announce, that's the entrance.
Right.
But they don't block any view, and they don't need to support anything.
All right, so let's poll the board. And by the way, John, in fact, I know, having driven there, that there's no external keypad on this.
No external
No external keypad.
keypad.
Like
So
to open the
when you
gates.
drive up,
Oh, there's
you know,
no- yeah,
the-
no,
you
no,
know
no.
those
No, one of
gooseneck
those
things?
gooseneck things, no.
Right, okay. So, Mark, you can, if you want to abstain, you're welcome
I'm
to.
going to abstain from this one.
John, what's your feeling?
I think the material issue is important, and if there is the opportunity to suggest it be moved back, then I think that's something that we should pursue.
Well, it's something that's out there. I think you've heard from the applicant that they don't intend to do that, whether it's a legal argument or it's a personal preference, that's their position. Sarah, are you in favor of the gates, either with this material, different material, in this position, not in this position?
I found the transparency all right, but I also found the metal material
Okay.
not to my liking.
Right, okay. Peter?
Yeah, the metal is, the transparency's fine, the design is fine, it's the gleam, and, if we have jurisdiction over placement along a driveway, then maybe someone can
Well, here's what we have.
study that.
Okay, and again, John will debate it,
Yes.
and we've heard you debate, John, it's on the record, and, and we have a vote. Okay, the vote is based on our judgment, okay, for a number of things that are defined in the code. And as long as we don't go beyond that, okay, we're okay to either approve or disapprove. So, before we task John with going back to his client with a request, I think it's consistent that the material request is there, and
I'm gonna tell them that if the board wants these gates,
John,
gates
just
to be
Charlie's having a
wooden,
hard time.
that they have to be what? I didn't
Okay,
say
no,
that.
so,
Okay, so, but I'd like to see if we can,
I understand, that's what I'm trying to do here. So, barring, given the position that they don't want to move the gates from where they are, but are willing to change the material, not put on an external keypad, are there those among you who would not approve this?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
if
We
we
need-
change it to wood and
Yeah.
don't put a gooseneck on it,
And keep it where it is.
Keep it
Are
where
there
it is.
those among the board who would not approve it? It takes three positives. We already have, because of your
Right.
abstention, the effectiveness of 1-0, one negative, okay? And you are welcome to vote, okay? So that's why I ask, if you object to the gate where it is, albeit with a different material, then we'll either move on, or we'll see John a month from now.
Yes, material and placement. Again, I know that's up in the air, I apologize for not knowing.
So you would vote no,
I would vote no.
okay? Sarah?
I would vote no pending the law.
Well, the law is, okay, if we want to take it back, I believe we have placement. So if again, the applicant can make their statement, John can take his position, okay? We can, if we want to research it, we can research it. To me, it's not, it's here in the code, but that's fine.
well, can I just state further?
Yeah, sure, come on, John.
The law is very clear. It's all laid out in the New York State Village Law, and each board has certain designated responsibilities. Location is not site plan review authority. That's given to the planning board. That's very specific. When they talk about location, that means location within a building that you're approving. And remember, zoning laws are in derogation of common law, so they're construed against you. You don't have a specific grant of site plan authority in your code. Indeed, that was the finding of the court in the Ferrara case. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're in or out of the historic district. The only difference in the law between historic and non-historic is the word scale. You don't have an express grant of site plan authority in your code. So, there are a set of rules.
Good.
You have to play within those rules.
So we have to
Well,
defer
and-
to our council.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's adjourn it and and talk to your counsel and see what, and I'll hopefully give some authority on that, and,
Good.
because it says right in the Ferrara case, it says
Okay.
you don't have site plan approval. So I don't know why I have to make this argument. That argument was decided by the Supreme Court in Suffolk County about 10
Okay.
years ago.
Okay.
So, Johnny, I hear you requesting an adjournment.
No, I'm not requesting an adjournment. I've sort of had it with that too. I'm not requesting an adjournment.
So-
We should vote then.
You're not ready with your legal opinion, it appears. And it would appear to me that if you were ready, as you should be with your legal opinion, you would know very well that you don't have
So-
site plan authority.
So there's a difference
I
between.
gave an opinion that he is vested in that location. So I don't think that that's unclear.
Right, that's the point I'm making, okay? So I'm firmly, and John and I can debate this and what our rights are. And our authority is to vote to approve or disapprove, and it does include placement relative to other properties. It's not, there's a difference, and I'm not gonna get into legal discussion. John's a far more astute litigator than I am, and I don't look to challenge that. But as a layman reading the code, we have the vote to approve or disapprove, including aspects related to the overall look, including placement. It's not site, we're not defining the site, it's just how it looks. Now, but I think there's a practical standpoint here, that the client does not want to move it back, okay? We can spend time researching it. It might, but we're gonna end up fighting. I'm sort of, there's a legal argument, there's a practical argument, there's an aesthetic argument, and realize that, while John is correct in saying everybody has to apply the law and abide by it, if it was that black and white, the entire legal profession would not exist.
Oh, Jeff, come on.
No, John, I'm saying this,
You have to pay your taxes.
I'm saying
That's
this,
the-
I'm saying this to your benefit.
Well, that's
Okay,
that's
I'm saying
debatable.
this to your benefit. There are two sides to an argument. Okay, so, we can argue it further.
Well, I'm trying to understand, I think you had a direction from your counsel, unless I misunderstood it, and I'm sorry.
Well, no, I think that the difference being, and I should let Alice speak for herself, but I think Alice,
Alice is taking a different tack but it still gets me my gates in that location,
I think Alex is making a practical statement
perhaps.
that, you know, the applicant is firmly entrenched, and it depends if you are equally, in your vote, that adamant to pursue it further.
Is everyone clear what your counsel's advice was? Because if you disapprove the gates in this location, correct me if I'm wrong, Alice, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, trust me. If you disapprove the gates in this location, it sounds to me like you're going against the advice of your counsel.
Well, the council, I
And
believe,
you're just
was making
Yes.
two
But there's
statements.
a question here for
I don't think
material.
she's going as far as I would say,
Right.
but nevertheless,
Right,
that's what she's saying. I just wanna, I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth, but that's what I heard. So why are we doing this? There's a reason she's sitting
yeah.
there, because you're not lawyers.
I happen to be okay with the gates where they are with the change of material.
I'm sorry.
I said, I'm okay with the gates where they are with the change of material. I'm just one vote. There are 4 other votes.
I
So,
heard John saying that as well.
Yeah, I want to get this, yeah.
On the advice of counsel, I will end, as simple as that.
Yeah, that's the only reason.
Exactly.
But we'll make them wooden.
Yeah.
Can you put that in an approval? We'll have to change the.
well, this is subject to
Yes, you
written
have to have a
decision.
written approval.
Okay, so,
I think we need to see that.
Yes,
what's that?
We need to see it. We need
Yes.
to see the
Oh,
plan.
okay. fair
Yeah,
enough.
I mean, if you have your architect,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. So, but
Oh, yeah,
that,
of course.
that can be done, I think, simultaneous to you writing a written decision on this. Do you think so? If
It's gonna
not,
look the same, it's just instead of metal, it's gonna say wooden, painted white wood.
it's up to you. I mean, in some ways, none of this matters because the gate's already there, and so whether they're there.
Well, that is because they're gonna have to they're gonna have to refabricate the gates.
Right.
So, but too bad. I'm sorry.
I can't write a written determination that references plans that we haven't seen.
Right,
Well, I get
at
that.
some
Right.
point, you're gonna have to have an
Until
accurate
December, right?
representation.
Right, right. So John, if I could put words in your mouth, which is very difficult, especially through the mask. Request an adjournment so that your architect can change the specs to reflect the board's wishes that it be wood rather than metal.
They're not gonna be happy, but that's too bad. I think that's within your purview.
So I move that we accept the applicant's request to adjourn to the next meeting, which is December 14th. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Do I have the ayes? Ayes.
Aye.
December 14th.
December 14th.
Aye.
Any nays? Nope. So Antoinette, this is adjourned to the next meeting on December 14th. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
And the next one too, I'm just here to carry Tim Haynes's briefcase.
Okay. You're the Sherpa. Okay, so the next application for driveway gates in the historic district is for Jan Split Purchase Trust, 56 Gin Lane, driveway gates and driveway and pedestrian gates.
Do you have two of them? You have two of them, right? There's 56 and 72?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
seven.
You wanna hear them together?
Can we do them
Well,
together?
are they
They're
are
joint
they,
parcels. They're beneficially owned by one party. It's,
Alice?
But they're separate.
Your call.
You can hear them together, if I can write them together.
So you're saying they share a common ownership?
Yes.
yeah. One's
Well, yeah or yes?
Large, 56 is the big house,
Right,
right? Yes. And Tom Lawrence from Bolton is here too.
right.
And 72 is legally a separate single-family residence, but it's used as the beach house. Everybody should.
Are the driveway gates
The same.
the same?
They're cousins.
All right, so you know what?
So however you want. I'm sorry.
I
Just trying
think,
to move it along.
I
That's
think
all.
for the benefit of your property owners, inasmuch as
That's fine.
they saw fit to separate these properties, then
Yeah.
we have to treat
Yeah, I
them
think
as
that's got two
such.
decisions.
We need affidavits.
Tim Haynes, architect for, which are we doing for 56? We're doing first?
Mhm.
Yep, mhm.
56 Gin Lane.
56.
I think you guys have these packets, or do you need a new copy?
You know what?
I didn't see
In the package I got from
I
the
didn't
building
get one.
department,
I
they
didn't get
were
any
not
either.
included in there.
Either.
And probably because they were just too voluminous.
They're not that big. Well,
Every,
Oh, yes, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes.
Is that 72? Okay, yep.
To you.
Yeah, I'll pass them. Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
I love samples.
Yeah.
It really helps
it does.
illustrate.
Zach, do you have a set, since this is in
I
the
don't,
historic
but
district?
I'm living in close proximity to them. There we go.
We have more. We share.
Oh, okay.
I'll use my beat up set in case.
Well,
Okay.
First, I
So-
guess because
So let
someone,
me see, we've got Tim Haynes, and who else do we have here? Who's that?
Lawrence,
Tom-
Bolton and Associates?
Tom Lawrence?
Yes.
Okay.
I was the building inspector in the village of East Hampton for many years.
so these, I'm here also, the landscape architect is Artie Maynard from England, and he, because of COVID,
Right,
can't be here, and we did this together, so I'm representing it on behalf of
Okay.
the two of us.
okay, all right. show us
So
what you
for
got, Tim.
56, there are 2 gates on 56. Do you want me to walk, I see,
Well, one,
you want to walk through this, or shall I just talk? So
Well-
there's 2 gates on 56. One is to the little rose cottage
Right.
that we've restored.
We need to turn it
Right.
around so that the videographer can
This way,
Yeah.
so that
So-
the
so-
TV can pick it up.
see now.
Right, but then if we're going
Okay.
to do
Now
that,
it's
then
right.
yes, you're
Okay.
right, we should
So-
probably go through this.
Tim, in terms of what's important to us are dimensions, design, transparency, material, columns, lighting, harmony to the neighborhood.
Right.
And are there gonna be any external, boxes or anything like that? So why don't you go through your presentation, show us what it looks like, okay? Because I see here a lot of pictures, I'm not sure,
Right, so
you know.
let's just go through it page
Yeah.
by
And
page.
and I appreciate the fact that there are gates in England that reflect the style. Why don't you start with what's gonna go there?
Yeah.
And then we can work backwards.
here's the
Okay, for the
first
sake of
page.
time, it's very late.
First page was just a general inspiration.
Wonderful.
Second page is what exists currently as the main entrance gate to 56. So on the right-hand side, was it installed with the brick piers as they were with the big, huge lanterns on top of them? And these are the gates that are still on site.
Right.
And there they are and taken off of their hinges on the left.
Freestanding gates, right?
So on the next page,
Magic gates.
So wait, the picture I'm looking at on is what? That, okay, that's what's there.
And that's freestanding without those.
And this is, this is that
it's
gate.
taken down and
Okay,
just being
okay.
held up in the
All
field.
right,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
the same thing, yeah.
That's fine, okay, great.
As you can see, definitely under, greater, less than 50% transparency as it is, probably more like 75 opaque. Side by side, the existing gates are 7 feet 6 tall in the middle, not including the little rabbit's feet. And then you have our proposed gates, the mock-up that we made showing they would be in teak, left to weather gray, hand-forged steel, bronze strap hinges. And that's the 2 side by side. Ours peaks at 7'6", but on the ends, and goes down to 6 feet in the middle, giving you a more welcoming, I think.
So it's just the photo that's. on
Yeah, it
a-
makes them,
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
probably not the one I would have put side by side, because it makes ours look
It's like,
bigger.
oh my God, they're huge.
Yeah, I know.
It's like when I take photographs. I stand up real close to the camera.
We're gonna come back to those. I have to go, by the way, this booklet was put together. The next one are the gates for Rose Cottage, which is the little cottage to the west
Wait,
end of the
is
property.
that's 72 now?
No, it's
No.
all,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
all
yeah.
part of the
It's all
same,
56.
Yeah.
it's all part of the same property. There's a little, it's been there for
Oh, okay, no,
years.
no, I was looking at the wrong page, I'm sorry.
I had all my children convinced that a adult-sized rabbit lived in that little
Yeah.
cottage.
I'd love to be that rabbit, right?
Yeah. Okay, I got you, I was just on a
um,
page ahead of you.
Okay.
There were these little gates right up along the road. To make them conforming, you see our wood posts in the
Yep.
background. We're moving it back to conform.
Right.
These are cousins to the big gates, but more unassuming in a way, and they're 6 feet tall and with wood posts
Right.
holding them.
Okay,
Now I go to another property,
Yeah.
so let's skip that
yeah,
page. We'll have
that's
to
what
come back to it.
completion is for, yep.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't put it
Yeah,
together.
well,
This is the sort of technical drawing of the main gate to,
Oh, so it's double gate, or double, like a door and a,
yeah, we wanted
They're
a
double hi- they're
pedestrian,
double
so
hinge
it's got a
gates.
sort of charming pedestrian gate within
That's
it,
so
so that
cool.
we don't have to add another penetration into the hedge.
right, and the hedges will be in front of the,
They are,
Here,
and
okay.
they are there now. They're
Okay.
hornbeam hedges
Alright,
and
good.
they've been planted.
I just wanted to clarify that, okay?
it's beautiful.
Yeah, they're beautiful
I was
hornbeam
driving.
hedges.
All right, head envy.
The posts on the main gate, unlike Rose Cottage, are brick, and it's the brick being used on the house. A lot of the brick on the house is being painted white. We do not want them to be aggressive, so we're keeping them in the natural brick color and the natural gate. It all had white gates before, and we want to have it much more recessive and understated.
These are untreated teak,
Untreated.
so they will completely gray out over time.
Completely, not that red
Not-
stain or
They've
yellow
actually-
stain or
No.
orange
Okay.
stain that people
Started
put on
to,
things.
we had a few in the weather.
Oh, good.
Yes. Then these are the technical drawings for the Rose Cottage, what I call the Rose Cottage gate, which,
Subsidiary in Army speak.
yeah, subsidiary, yes, exactly. We can,
Area will give them the errands.
do you want to keep going through and look at the aerial?
Yeah, yeah, okay,
Um,
I'm sorry, yeah, the placement.
The ho- You know, the trick is here, we wanted a beautiful gate, but that would stand up. It's a substantial property with what I think is probably one of the most substantial houses in the village in terms of its just sheer
Mhm.
volume, height, scale, presence, columns, the whole 9 yards.
All right,
Can I ask a question? How does the mechanics operate for this gate?
Say again?
How do the mechanics operate, how the doors open and close?
We're in the process of working that out.
What's your vision?
There'll be,
Do two open and they fold back, or?
yes,
Okay.
and the safety interlock is a bit of a tricky element.
But it's not going to be an automatic door, well, it almost has to be
It
manual.
could very well.
Really?
Yeah.
What, the pedestrian one?
Yeah.
It's gonna be
That's-
automatic,
It's been
talked about?
talked about.
So you're gonna have to hit a release?
And the trickiest part is keeping the pedestrian door closed as the main gate functions as a drive.
Oh, right.
So
Right.
we
Because
literally
there's-
have engineers on both sides of the
I
ocean.
bet, because there's not a break in
considering this.
Even though I know it's not relevant, that's why if you look at the precedent image on your first page, that's what
No, I'm asking.
excited us and the client was the fact that there are those pedestrian gates. And I'm actually working with iron forgers down in Pennsylvania to make hardware that is handcrafted.
Impressive.
Tim, anything more on this? 'Cause I think we.
This house, no, I mean, now we have the,
One question, in terms of the mechanism, will there be an external keypad? My,
now.
There are
okay.
external keypads.
Yeah, you know, one of the things, and I know it's there, but as I drive down the historic roads, they are really distasteful and I think unnecessary. I know they're a convenience, but I've also seen plenty of gates where the mechanism, or at least the keypad, is within the pillar, or there's some mechanism. I'd like you folks to think about that. Let's hear comments from the board, and I'll start with you, Peter.
As opposed to a gooseneck, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's beautiful, it's original, it's crafted, it's wonderful, wonderful.
Sarah?
Same thing, and an excellent presentation.
Yeah, it's spectacular. I mean, it's just beautiful. And it's in the characteristic of the home and the surroundings. I think it's,
Such a huge
if all
improvement
could
to
be this
what-
beautiful.
what it was.
Right.
Yeah, man,
Mark?
yeah.
My comment would be, I think it's impressive that you've made something so massive recessive, as much as it can be.
Yeah, yeah,
It's really-
that's.
It's really beautiful.
You know, that's a good point, and some of the things we speak about before, that a lot has to do with design and placement and so on. So, my only issue is the external control and the gooseneck. If you folks can come up with a mechanism, or just eliminate that, and put it somewhere else.
I agree. That one almost ruined it in a way, you know?
I will tell you, though, that you're essentially getting out of the car.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, well,
I mean, I agree with
You
you,
know,
They're not
my
attractive.
they're not attractive. You're building,
So
you-
that they're not a prominent feature
Yeah,
upon
yeah,
approach.
like in the bush kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
you're building a beautiful gate. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what everybody's saying.
But you never
Why
reach the
distract
vision.
from that
It's width, you never
beauty
reach the vision
with
of the
something so 21st century mechanical, with its blue light and everything else that's gonna be on there? So,
It's perfect.
so I would approve it with the provision that there be no external gooseneck keypad.
No gooseneck keypad. Well,
You know, I
boys,
don't, maybe we need to see,
I don't, it's, you know, it's not something, in all honesty, we've addressed. I think Arnie, myself, and the client would all agree with you. The question is, I just can't say, okay, for the
Okay.
client, if they need some way to,
Can they come back with an amendment to this?
No. So
we will try to reinvent the wheel, because we all don't
let's
like
do
it.
this. You have a favorable disposition or in terms of the design and everything else. Why don't you think about how you can hide the mechanism so that it doesn't detract from your beautiful design?
Right.
And then you can resubmit it and we'll vote on it then.
But my thought is,
Yes.
why don't, we'll take the gates with the condition that there can't be a gooseneck keypad. We'll just have to work it out.
Well, but can we take it with that without, I mean,
Well,
I'm assuming that-
if she wants it, we're gonna have to come back and ask.
With
Hopefully
the
they've gone
way
this
to do
far.
it.
So
and
I-
they would
let's
do
get
something
into-
with
let's
what I
get
want
into
to do is we
fabrication
could
with
take
these
it with that without,
Hey, what do
but
you
not
think,
saying we
Alice?
absolutely
Okay.
won't have something out there, but we would come back to
Okay.
it, how Arnie and I feel we could do it.
Okay.
That would be appropriate to
And
the
then
board.
But
it'll
what
become
Jeff
the
is saying
typical
is
for
no
this village.
gooseneck.
Right, and you guys think creatively, you've come up with a very creative and attractive design, I'm sure you can do that. If you have to figure out the physics between having one door open and one door staying closed so that it doesn't cantilever on itself, then surely you can figure out where to place a keypad.
I just wanna make sure, to me, a gooseneck
Steady airplane
keypad
hangers.
is something that's divorced from the column. It stands.
Right,
Yes,
That-
yeah,
it's
yeah.
freestanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's freestanding, but if we can somehow work this out within the column,
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
that's fine. All right.
Or
Like
in a
those
way
cell
that doesn't-
trees
All
along.
right, you guys
Why
figure
don't,
that
why don't you
out.
guys figure
So,
it out and come
um,
back, because that's so wide, you're not getting out of your car to go to the
Okay,
column. So you guys will
so-
figure it
You're
out.
not gonna get out of the car.
You'll have your,
That would negate the whole point.
you'll have your driver. do it.
Okay, so
The Maybach.
I move that we submit this to written decision for the approval of driveway gates with the provision that there be no external, i.e. no gooseneck,
Freestanding.
freestanding keypad, which by default means it's gonna be somewhere in the column. I don't know how the hell you put that
Well,
all
it might
into
be,
words,
that's
but,
why I don't wanna say that it won't be a
Okay.
freestanding. I wanna say that we'll come back with them with how we will deal with
Yes.
the access panel, not that there won't be one, because if we say that, we may come up with some way to hide it within a landscape that might be freestanding, but
Well,
acceptable.
why don't we say then, what we should say then, if I may, is that anything other than, what I'm trying to say, let me think about this. We're not, anything other than a
Gooseneck.
gooseneck is gonna have to come back for, if you want the gooseneck, we're gonna have to come back for an amendment.
no, but that leaves too many options, so,
Maybe
Tim,
we approve the gates, but without the approval of the method of opening
Yes.
the gates
well,
from the street.
then,
Unless they're in the column,
Without the gate mechanism.
unless it's in the
Stop
column.
talking, I'm finished.
Yeah, but who's gonna get out of their car and go to the column? But yeah, I know.
so
Unfortunately,
you know what?
You know what?
So then you guys are gonna have to come back.
Yeah.
So why don't you come back? The house isn't gonna be ready for Christmas, so why don't you ask for an adjournment, you figure it out and come back to us,
Okay,
okay?
Take the gates, take the gates with no freestanding keypad, and we'll figure it out, and we have to come back, where we come back, I wanna get the gates
It's-
out.
it's-
that's what they're okay with, I think, right? We'll
Okay.
take the gates as is, and then we'll come back with our means of opening them
Right, so
from the street.
because you do have to
Oh,
make,
but we have to do the other property.
we still have.
We have to do 72 now.
So then, okay, so I move that we, I move that, I ask for a motion, I submit a motion that I make a motion that we submit the application of, what the heck is it?
56.
56.
Thank you, thank
56
you.
Gin Lane.
56 Gin Lane, which is the Jan Split Purchase Trust for driveway gates. Submit to written decision with the express provision that this is for the driveway gates only, without any mechanism, specifically without any external freestanding mechanism.
For access,
Right.
keypad.
Access keypad, okay. I think, Alice, you got it all?
Okay,
Thank you, Al.
I second.
All right.
second.
We have a second from Sarah. Do I have ayes?
Aye.
All right, no nays. Okay, no, all right, so
Congrats on a
Congrats,
beautiful
this is a beautiful.
Antoinette,
property and everything.
do you have that all?
Yeah, have fun with the engineer.
Yeah? All right,
Yeah,
good.
now we have to do
You're a better man than I am.
72.
We missed you. All right.
Antoinette, I
been
said
so
you're a
long.
better man than I am.
All right.
That's sort of like one over our heads.
Yeah, my big return is gates.
More gates.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, don't take me literally, okay.
Where's the gates?
And few people do.
Okay.
Okay, so now,
If you can do,
72 Gin Lane, so we changed the application, but we don't change the applicant. So, but you fellas, please reintroduce yourselves.
Timothy Haynes, architect for 72 Gin Lane.
I'll go last.
Okay, and Tom?
Tom Lawrence, Bolgen and Associates.
And John Bennett, Bennett and Reed.
Okay. So, gentlemen, I don't know if you need to, you can present it, but let's expedite it. 'cause I
The
think
quickest
we're-
way to look at this is probably to go to page, I don't think they're numbered, 1, 2, the 5th page in.
By the way, I just want to, this literally is a mock-up. They're not built.
Yeah,
These are not
No.
for an as-built. It's a very elaborate mock-up, but nevertheless, it is
Yeah.
a mock-up.
okay.
I didn't want to get everyone to think we were here for an as-built.
No, plywood.
Poor John.
We actually made a point of notifying the building department such that when they
Right.
drove by, they
Right.
didn't.
Okay,
So, on this page, you have what was existing,
mhm,
and then what we are proposing on
Yep.
the other side, which again
Yep.
ties into everything that we've talked
Yep.
about, same materials. A straight,
With the same pedestrian
See-
opening going into wide opening?
this one doesn't have a pedestrian.
Has the look.
Has the look of it, but it doesn't, I mean, it's not gonna have hardware to make it look like it, but
But
it
it
has the
mimics the
same
main
sort
gate,
of.
right?
Right, it's straight like the Rose Cottage one, so that Arnie and my vision was the two sides are straight and sort of low key, and the middle one has the arc
right.
down for a more elegant, accentuating the center of the property versus the east and west side. And then if you go to the technical drawing, which is about another 4 pages on, and again, it shows you that gate in, it's all the same detailing, different heights and different.
Yeah.
This one also has the brick piers like the main gate, because it goes to a proper house as opposed to a cottage.
It'll have the same thing as an automatic operation issue that the others.
Right? Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Essentially the same.
Yeah, so
Fewer
if,
engineers, though.
I have nothing to say, it's perfect.
all right,
Yeah.
so if everybody's in the same, so then I move that we, that the application of 72 Gin Lane, LLC 72 Gin Lane for driveway gates in the historic district be submitted for written decision with the provision that there'll be no external mechanism, keypad or otherwise, entrance mechanism. Okay?
Yep.
Second?
Oh, thank you.
Or,
So, second by
Second.
John Gregory. Do I hear ayes?
Aye.
Okay, do I hear nays? I don't hear any nays, so that's
Great,
unanimous.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right, thank you,
all very much.
gentlemen.
Really beautiful.
Thank you.
And thank you for the samples, it really did help.
Okay.
Gates, more gates.
See where we are in the scheme of things, folks.
Right?
Okay, thank you.
Maybe a long time ago.
Okay. Okay,
No, I
Could again, maybe.
recognize you.
so let me move on here. So we've got the driveway gates. Okay. So we are entering next phase of the meeting. Okay. So we will now be hearing applications for structures in the non-historic district. We will begin with 31 Roscoe Developer LLC with 31 Roscoe Drive to construct a two-story single-family dwelling and detached garage. So John, the floor is yours, but please introduce yourself.
Well, John Bennett and Bill Slade is with me here, as well as Mr. DeVito and Mr. Miller, who is the owner. Now, I'm gonna let Bill generally talk about the changes, but I think what I wanted the board to see, and I'm, I think what you have here is a board and an applicant working very, very hard together, which is good, and an applicant listening And I'm actually very pleased. I think the system, and I hope you'll agree with me, has worked. This is where we started. You had like the battered thing, which again, I looked for something that was non-institutional, quite honestly, Sarah, and couldn't find anything, with the exception of some residential stuff that was not in the area. And, you know, the peak was above the soffit line and the facial line of the main part of the building, and I'll let Bill explain, but there's a lot less glass, more mullions, we filled it in, brought the roof and soffit and facial line way down so it meets with the rest of it. Bill, I'm sorry, but I think, hopefully you'll agree that we're,
You've got the piece there.
excuse me?
You've got this sort of drawing there.
Well, I wanted
Yeah.
sort of like, this isn't just before and after, this is a
Yeah.
couple of iterations, but I think we've gotten a long way. So hopefully you'll agree.
As John has pointed out, this is what we presented for tonight. This is what you saw last week. I've just handed out revised renderings to reflect these changes. We've reduced the amount of glass by making the mullions between the vertical elements heavier. We've added panels, vertical panels, divided lights, so that we de-emphasize the amount of glass. We've reduced the importance of the center element by bringing the hip roof of that down in line with the main gutter line of the house. And
Also took out the curb
de-emphasize that. And we also have introduced horizontal banding on the center part to interrupt the verticality of that. So all those elements, we feel bring a little bit more human scale and hopefully.
I think also, as Sarah pointed out, I think, and interestingly, as the design, those columns have taken on, what would you call it? It's not prairie, is it arts and
Well,
crafts maybe?
we've added more arts and crafts, to the detailing, to give a little more texture to the
So
to the
actually,
design.
the time has allowed the house to mature in other ways, I think. And then I just didn't want to forget that on the garage, as within the center structure here, we lost the curved linear window and also took, I don't know if you'd call this a watermark as it is now, but it's a lot less brick
Oh, yeah.
than it was on the last one. I think some of the board members didn't like that, so. But I think that it's a long way, and Bill, don't throw anything at me, but I think it's turned out to be a nicer house. The center section has become less imposing, and I think from the very beginning that was the board's concern was, and it does create a better whole, if I may. And again, as I say, some of the architectural details, given some people may call a delay, I've been calling it maturation of the house, have become superior.
That's it for your statement? Okay, so why don't we hear from the board? I can't recall where I started, but I'll start with you this time, Sarah.
I think you've done everything we've asked you to do. And I think it's a better building for it, and I commend you for sticking with it and reflecting our comments in your design.
Peter?
Yeah, I think it's very nice. My only issue is with the stone. I wondered if that's a little bit anomalous. You don't see many, vernacular stone buildings out here. And I just other than that, it looks great. I did have a question about, on the back, what's the back look like now? Does it have,
Did last week.
with it breaks does it break the cornice still? The eave? Sorry?
It does.
Yeah, I object to that in the back.
Can we ask how the other board members feel?
Which I don't have that schematic in front of me. Would you-
And maybe show the back
No, this is the
elevation.
original. This is
But
the
this,
original.
this is not changed,
This
is
is
it?
not the original.
Okay.
You need your,
I have,
as
this
submitted
needs to
drawings.
be up on the screen.
I have the,
We can look at
Here
the.
it
Take
is.
these off. I think they've served their purpose.
Yeah,
No, this is old, I'm sorry.
the,
It's an old one.
the middle section of the, in the last iteration was lowered in response to your comments, and so it's a lowered element than originally was designed. We unified the divisions in the windows. We removed the balconies. So, you know, we added the craftsman style piers to the columns.
Yeah, the
So,
only comment that I
You know,
heard last
and
time,
there was
Bill-
no
Bill,
no
the only comment that
comments
I
last
heard,
time.
let me finish.
Yeah.
The only comment that I heard was you were appreciative of the fact that we removed the balcony.
Yeah,
We specifically didn't take any action on that because there was no, I don't know.
yeah.
It's a good thing. I think it's amazing what difference it makes bringing that roof line down.
Yes, it's remarkable.
It makes the structure look much more residential.
Yes.
And the center windows, I think, are much improved. There's only one thing, and I don't know why it sticks out, that in the center, the windows on the second floor are at the same scale and size and impact as the first floor. I almost wish that, you see that the top row of windows of the second floor, right under the eave, it's like if those were eliminated, somehow it would just, you know, it would make it perfect for me.
What, in the center section?
Yeah, the center section, you see how the
It's like transomy almost?
yeah, it just,
John,
yeah,
that? Like,
yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
They line up with the other window heights.
Yeah, the three at the
Well,
top.
Bill was pointing out that they line up with the other window heights in the building, so it does carry that through for
Yeah.
the symmetry. That's actually a good point. Query whether or not that would look strange if you dropped them so that they were lower by that width and height of the transom windows.
Maybe than the bottom. But what I'm trying to say is that the fact that they're exactly the same somehow makes it feel still a little, the second floor, more substantial than a typical second floor would be from.
I sort of thought we did everything you guys wanted.
No, it's not that I would necessarily vote
I
it
mean,
down, but I just,
It's not, how do I say this while being at the same time very respectful of all the struggles that we've gone through with this? It's not, you don't, the code doesn't say it has to be perfectly to your liking. It has to say it's within the standards, you know?
the code says that we have to make it, you know, blend in harmony with the
Yeah,
surrounding
yeah, that's
buildings.
right, yeah,
So
yeah.
that has, you
No, I
know,
understand.
that's open to interpretation, I would take it.
Yeah, no, I understand, but it doesn't,
I think there's room for rhetoric, so, you know, and some, we're not gonna parse words, because he said it'd be perfect, meant that it has to be perfect, so let's be practical, okay? Let's see, John, more comments?
No, that was my only issue, was that
Mark, do
second
we
floor,
hear from
second
you?
window.
Yeah, I think from last meeting, I think there've been great strides to make it fit more into residential. I mean, this is still a bit of an architecturally aggressive house in what is currently a rather gentle neighborhood because of the size and scale and design of the other houses. But I think you've done great strides in coming closer to it. I think bringing the brickwork down in the garage has made great strides because it takes the garage and makes it far less noticeable from the street side, so I think that's good. I think the stonework on the columns may be a little bit much for this neighborhood, but I think you've done a good job at trying to bring it forward and listening to the board.
you know what I love about this house is that it's not, some of the redevelopment of that Roscoe neighborhood has almost gotten sort of like banal shingle style, sort of, this is really,
It's character.
It is character.
yeah, Thank you, yeah. You know?
Right,
It's
so are
so much
those,
about, taking the safe route.
are those the comments from the board?
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, I'm still generally concerned with the massiveness of the house in that, where it's positioned on the property, which I know is within standards. But anyway, I'm still concerned about the mass, but let me hold that for the moment. Did you gentlemen want to add any more comments to the comments back to here?
Well, we're not, I mean, you don't even have the beginning of an argument on that, Jeff, we're not even in the historic district. I mean, you can't tell me to make it smaller or not
I'm not
as
telling you to
wide.
make it smaller.
I mean, I find myself very, very frustrated. We've in good faith listened to what everybody said in specific detail about how you wanted us to change this house.
Mhm.
And we have responded
Right.
perfectly in kind.
Well, you've responded. Nothing is perfect.
Take it as a joke, John. All right, hey, so yes, you guys have done yeoman's work in terms of responding. I was expressing my concern in terms of still some concern about its scale. And yes, 11633 does provide us
The word scale doesn't appear.
mass,
Yeah.
mass.
And that's been found not to be
Right, well,
equivalent
again,
size or.
we can we
No,
can.
it's not an argument, Jeff, it's in the case law.
Okay, good. So we'll let the attorneys argue, you know, what we're trying to do here is to get a house constructed that is in harmony with the neighborhood, okay? And to do that, you need 3 votes, and let's work towards that.
Well,
So
that's what we've been
if,
doing for the last 3 months.
I know, and we've acknowledged the progress. I acknowledge my concern, as did the other board members do. And we'll hear now from the public. I first start with that which submitted to the file. Sarah, would you want to read that? Okay, that's one submission.
Sure. Dear members of the board, I'm a resident of 34 Old Field Lane in the Roscoe Drive development. The east side of my property is adjacent to 31. In effect, my backyard is next to the backyard of 31. The building plans I have seen look pretty massive, and basically the entire second floor has an unimpeded view of my backyard, pool area, outdoor patio, etc. This house is currently configured will certainly have a negative impact on my privacy and quality of life. While I certainly am supportive of economic growth and progress, the dimensions of this house can certainly be reconfigured to better blend in with the character and history of the neighborhood, while at the same time affording the benefits of me. I built my property 2013, 2014. I was approved for a 6,700 square foot house given the size of my property. And while big, my house is approximately 4,500 square feet. Also, my roof lines are more in the character of the neighborhood in that they are triangular and come down to touch the top of the first floor. Too many of the new houses that are being built in the neighborhood, where it's basically 2 rectangles on top of each other, and then the roof starts at the top of that. They look gigantic relative to the neighborhood. As I've said, I completely understand the desire to take advantage of the lot and build something on a larger scale than previously existed. I just believe that there should be a balance to where one pushes that line between scale and aesthetics. I also believe that the design can be reconfigured in a way where one doesn't have to sacrifice that much living space with some adjustments to layout roof lines. At the very least, if these plans go through as is, I would suggest the builder put up 20-foot arborvitaes or hedge, given the current plans and openness onto my property. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
And that's submitted by whom?
Michael Kosciuszko?
Okay,
The bridge.
just like the bridge, okay?
Yeah, Kosciuszko.
Kosciuszko.
Just for context,
34
this is his house, it's 4,500 square feet. This is a 3,700 square foot house. This is his house. He's been saying that this 3,700
Right.
square foot house, 800 square feet less than his, I'm sorry if my math is wrong, is massive.
Again, it is,
I mean,
it's
you know,
one,
those things, those sort of words, massive,
Right.
significant, they're all, it's just, you know what the case law calls is generalized local complaints. There's no
So
specificity.
there was a concern here about screening, but let's hear from the rest of the public. So this is one piece. There are submissions in here from Evelyn Conrad. They are rather extensive. I do see her in the audience. So as we open up the floor to public comment, I'm sure Evelyn will speak as well as other folks. So whoever wants to come up first, please introduce yourself, and you will have the floor. Thank you, Sarah. You can take this back.
Good evening. My name is Fred Weinford. I reside at 45 Roscoe Drive. And just as a follow-up to Michael Kosciuszko's letter, I happen to know his lot is at least 3/4 of an acre. I think it's the largest lot in the Roscoe community. So he does have a large home, but it fits very well on the lot. And it is very traditional shingle-styled house and very appropriate for the Roscoe community. I heard some language earlier tonight that talking about this proposed structure on 31 Roscoe, that it has character. Well, it may, but it's out of character with the Roscoe community. Going back to the first meeting, I know there was some concern by the board, as well as my own, about that large window in the middle of the house. In addition, there was comments made about it was not a traditional Southampton home, over the top, less residential than other houses in the neighborhood, and monumental in scale. The window still exists. It's been tweaked, I will agree, but it's still a massive window in the center of the house and not in keeping with anything in the Roscoe community. Your instructions in the first meeting were for the applicant to walk the Roscoe community and come back with a redesign, with the terms that we used, of this house that would be more in keeping with the Roscoe community. These minor tweaks that have been made to this house do not make it anything like any of the other homes in the Roscoe community. And I hope you will take that into consideration. Again, I know you're charged with determining whether a home is harmoniously compatible, and I don't think this structure is. And I hope you will realize that and ask for a redesign or vote on this as it presently exists and turn it down. Thank you very much.
Well, when I was here last, if I may, I want to respond
You
to
know,
that.
no. Well,
Whether or not we had to redesign
No,
this, you said no.
John, here's what I'd like to do in the process, because you weren't here when we began. So what we're going to be doing in the future, since you're a regular, is we're going to be adhering to a process where the applicant has uninterrupted time, the board has uninterrupted time. There's then the opportunity for the applicant to respond. Then there's public comment, and then the applicant can respond in toto to the public comment. Okay? It'll just be smoother that way. Okay, any other comments from the public?
I'd like to make a quick comment. You know,
Okay.
one of the duties of this board is to prevent excessive similarity. So you're not just looking for all the houses to match. You want to prevent excessive similarity.
Thank you, Alice. Next public comment?
I'm Carol Welch. I live at 340 Hill Street. You know, my concern, which was the first concern I had when this first came up, is that they have no landscaping plan, and that window that on that second floor kind of looks right into my pool and pool house in the back. So that's a concern, because I lose my privacy also. I have a fence there. That's the maximum height the fence could be, but that in no way blocks out anything above the first floor. So I'd like to see something that would show what they're gonna do for screening. But again, you can't screen that second floor window.
Thank you, Carol. Anybody else from the public?
Good evening. Evelyn Conrad, 18 South Roscoe Drive. I really just have one correction to make, if I may, and that is that this is a subdivision, not a community, not a neighborhood, although it is all of that, but it is a legal certified subdivision. And without going into aspects of the legal thing, which I think I have already submitted to you, I would like to say that is a house that is completely out of character, out of harmony with the area, with the subdivision. It is even out of character with Hill Street, which you keep citing, even though it's not legally relevant to our area. But that house just has absolutely no sense of fitting into that subdivision. Thank you. Architecturally, in fabric, in materials, in scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Any other public comments? John, you or Bill or Frank are welcome to make a statement in response to the public.
No, just, I don't know what Evelyn's talking about in terms of a subdivision. She seems to think that there's some covenants that give her some sort of,
Well,
it's just, I don't know what her, it was an unintelligible response as far as I'm concerned.
I think he was focusing on the architectural aspects for the purposes of this meeting.
Thank you. I'm going to stand by what I said before, which is the redevelopment of the Roscoe neighborhood, which it has been a redevelopment of the Roscoe neighborhood, as far as I've been seeing, has been populated, as it were, by pleasant, but nevertheless, to a certain degree, you know, I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, but if I have to see one more, quote, shingle-style Stanford white-ish house going up, where, because that's a safe bet, you know, and people like that and they see it, I think this should be rewarded. This is, hopefully what you're looking at is the planting plan.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't know if this was submitted into the file before. Was this submitted on Thursday? So the public hasn't had a chance
Bill, when
to
did that
see
go
it.
in?
It just came in today.
He just came in.
Yeah,
So that's fine,
it's dated
because
tonight.
actually, John, you know, given the concerns that either from the Kosciuszkos and from Mrs. Welch, and from, John, let me just
No,
finish.
because you asked me to respond, and
Yeah,
I want to
okay.
respond. It's one thing to talk about second-story balconies,
Right.
but if you were gonna talk about windows looking in, you know, if you don't like that, don't live in the village. I don't know what else to say. Buy 6 acres in the town. You're gonna have people looking into your backyards from windows. People look into my backyard and Hilda Street from their windows next door. We took the balcony away. You guys have like a no-go zone about that. We respected that, but windows, I mean, every house, every second
Right.
story window looks into somebody's backyard, the street or somebody's backyard.
So I think the request there, or at least the request from me, which I was gonna ask as, even before hearing from the public, was for a landscaping plan. So I'm glad, Frank, that you submitted it. I'm only sorry that the public hasn't had a chance to see it. If you could at least put it on the table so that those who are here and who have expressed concerns. Now, what's lacking on this plan, there are some descriptions, but they're not to the point of, you know, whether you're planting, I'm looking at the, I guess it's the south row of.
You should have had it. You should have had a more detailed plan.
Yeah, so, you know, in terms of, thank you, John, but basically what's being planted, how large it's gonna be at the time of planting, because it makes a big difference, you know, if you're planting 10-foot arborvitae, which grow at, you know, 3 feet a year or something like that, or, you know,
You're looking the south side over here,
yeah.
so there is large arborvitaes here, so we're just doing some blue hollies to really cover where the bottom of the trees are dying, because we're never gonna get sun, so we can't get another arborvitae up against it. So we have very big blockage over there. We're just filling in with some blue hollies. The back of the property, we're doing green giant arborvitaes and cryptomeriums mixed.
and we're doing in the 14-foot range, all back along here. It'll be 14, 16 foot. And they grow very fast, they grow very nice. We didn't want to create a hedge, so we mixed them together, so you do get some different greens in there.
And the front plantings are part of your submission?
The front plantings here, this is a low privet hedge. And then we're mixing in some blue hollies. We have we're bringing in a specimen tree that's a corkscrew willow. We have 3 straight myrtles here. Over here we have, these are Hollywood junipers. So they're more slow growing.
And the planting, I mean, you have a rendering here which doesn't quite match, but it's suggested that you're gonna put some evergreens to flank the window, presumably to soften that up.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, the legend and quantities are on here. I'm sorry, my apologies on the landscape plan.
you know, are the heights there? I need a magnifying glass to see that.
I don't think the sizes are there.
Well, we're in between the 14 and 16-foot range on all the west property trees.
I'm not sure if it's specified there. So let's,
You know, just another comment too, Jeff. You did at the first meeting, asked us to walk the village, walk the town, the community.
well, the area.
Which we did.
Yeah.
We obviously did because we obviously hired a photographer and a drone to photograph every house in there and take a look in the study. And if you notice our house, we didn't try to make it look bigger by flattening the top, putting a flat roof on top. We stayed with true construction practices that have been here for 100 and something years. We did look into the community. We are, you know, I am always tired of building the same, seeing the same thing through all over the place. This house is very modest compared to a lot of the houses that got done in there. And we took that into consideration. We listened to the board. We did make some changes. We listened to the neighbors. What Fred has to say is, wouldn't matter what house was in front of here. It's
Well,
not gonna make him
let's not
happy.
get personal here, because we don't know that for a fact.
I do say, though, that to characterize the significant changes that have evolved here as tweaking is really not fair to the energies of Mr. Schley and the rest of the team.
Okay.
And as you see with the plantings there, they're very harmonious, they're very nice for the neighborhood. This is not builders, you know, plantings. These are not small specimens. You've seen that with my background. We always come in with mature trees.
So, I'm gonna ask Alice a question in terms of, so there's submitting this, or maybe I should ask John, are you submitting this as your final landscape plan? Or do you want to submit something of more detail? And can we accept this, or, which is lacking some of the specificity that we generally see in a landscape plan?
You mean in height?
Yeah, and the heights are, yeah, unless it's in this little print that I can't see.
I don't have a copy.
Okay.
So I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, you can accept it if you want. We'd prefer that you did. We'd like to see if we can get some sort of approval, to be very candid with you, but.
I mean, they're labeled. If you have a specific concern about height, you can certainly ask for that.
Or you could make it part of the approval, or we could stipulate to it. I mean, but for that,
Yeah.
you know. We'll make them however you want, within reason, you know.
Do you want, if Frank pencils in, pens in the heights that he just spoke about, and we stamp it in,
The 14 to 16 for the
Yeah.
arborvitae, I mean, for the.
Okay. I think that would be sufficient, at
area.
least it would work for me, so you tell me if that's according to Hoyle, in terms of landscape plan.
That's fine.
Okay, so Frank, if you can fill in the heights on that. So let me just go through our checklist of what we do have responsibility and authority. So in terms of style, board members, take a polling.
What?
And I'm trying to go through a checklist.
Okay.
Okay, we've got style, materials, mass, line, color, detail, placement. Okay, and placement is in the code as upon the property or in relation to the spaces between buildings or the natural character of the landscape, or because the plans do not provide for the location and design of structures and open spaces so as to create balance and harmonious composition as a whole, or in relation to its several parts and features to each other. So in terms of style, do we have objections?
I don't.
Okay, gentlemen, lady, okay, so style's a check. Materials, do we have objections?
Just the stone.
Just the stone.
Just the stone.
Where? At the base of the garage and particularly the base of the garage, but
Can you take it off I thought, Sarah, I thought you liked it, the stones on the column. I thought that made it a little bit more unique.
I like the stones on the column.
And we can take it off the garage. I just thought it added to the sort of freshness and the difference in the character of it. I'm trying desperately not to make, he's gonna shoot me because he's a sometimes client of mine. I'm
It's a
trying to get
minor
away from the
concern.
feralization of the
How
thing,
about,
so.
how about if we lower the stone in the garage?
Why don't you take
to
the stone in the garage
to
away?
lower, no, let's lower it to the foundation. You
Okay.
see the
I
stone on the
think that would be
foundation?
great.
yes.
Let's lower it right to that. This
Right.
way it all
If you take the
matches.
stone down, you're saying the same size, it's the same height as about the four stones
You
at the
see, you see
foundation.
the steps and the little foundation
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Yeah.
We bring it right around
I
there.
think that would
so
help
it all brings
tremendously.
right around.
Perfect,
Perfect.
perfect, thank you.
All right?
But I'd like to leave it at the base of the column, so.
The columns are staying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing something in order, Jeff? Should I?
I'm sorry?
I just want to, maybe I'm out of order, I did speak up, Mr. Bennett, about the back, on the very first meeting, the back
About the-
back central bay. I objected at the very first meeting when you weren't here. And that is really my only architectural objection, is that the back bay in the center breaks the E line.
We did make a lot of concessions in the back.
No, you did. I see
That-
them.
That back bay though, it's a stick of butter. If we just come right across with that thing,
Yeah, but it's curved.
no.
It's curved. It'll stick out, I think. I mean, I think it'll read.
I think you're missing it. I think once it was built, you would agree that it's a good element. I think the angle we're looking on, I would not like to give that up. I like that in the back of the house. I like the light that's gonna come in, because we have big overhangs too. I would love the light that comes in that bathroom.
That's a very good point. They have large overhangs, which is a part of the character of the house.
So we have an issue on the back base. So I'm polling everybody so I can just summarize what the issues are. Then, again, it's a matter of whether those issues are of such a magnitude that they affect your vote one way or the other. Okay, so in terms of the mass, any objections there?
No.
Okay,
Problem
so
with the center windows, but that's.
I express my objection to the massiveness, but again, that's mine. Okay. To the lines of the house. Any objections? No. Okay, so that's a check. To the color of the house? No? No? Okay,
Fine.
fine. To the details?
They're fine. I
Fine.
think.
Fine. John?
I mean, it's a, kind of a character of an arts and crafts, but, okay.
So I'm hearing, okay, all right. Then placement on the property, which is defined in the code, in relation to the spaces of the other houses or the natural landscape. Again, I have an issue with that. I don't know if anybody else does on the board. Are there any objections to that?
Your issue is placement of the garage?
No, my issue is that the house, because of its style and its brick, and because of the window treatment, which is arguably toned down considerably, but nonetheless, will appear massive against some of the other properties and the one next to it, which is long and really the side of the house. I'm not sure it's a sword I'm gonna die on, but, you know, that is my objection, and we each have our own judgment. So, with all of that, let me poll the board on their votes, okay? I mean, are there anything in here that is objectionable to the point that you would vote negative?
Yeah, that middle bay in the back.
Okay, yeah.
The massing of the windows in the front. I said that from the get-go.
Okay, so,
But
we-
in what manner? I thought you said, it's just the top, that top, I'm calling it transom.
My issue from the get-go has been that stack of windows in the center of the house. That just, it's not a characteristic of not many houses in the entire village, much less the houses in that general neighborhood, which are mostly, you know, single-story ranch homes or,
In this neighborhood?
two-story. Yes.
Not anymore.
Would you let me finish my statement, please? Either the existing, the original first-story ranch homes or two-story homes that have been built more in the style of the Southampton Village, shingles and, you know, 6/6 windows or 6/4s.
yeah.
The problem I'm having is it's really difficult. You know, what happens is I listen to what everybody says, and in terms of the center section, we talked about putting mullions in it, we talked about lowering the square footage of it. These are all specific things. Take it down so that it's not, you know, it's below the soffit and facial line of the rest of the building. These are all specific things that I heard,
And that may have satisfied everyone else, but it hasn't satisfied
you
me,
know,
so.
Right, no, everybody has a vote, John.
I know, but you know what, it's not fair to make it so
we also,
someone to respond to the board as a whole.
right, we also spoke earlier on about the facial was an accommodation to a change, but there were some who would have preferred to see a more traditional first and second floor break.
Do you know how difficult it is? You have 5 people, I'll vote for this, but not for that, I'll vote for this, but not for that. So, you
That's
know,
called
that's
consensus.
not fair what's going on
Well,
here. I'll give you my, I've got 4 votes if I take out this and that, but then I've got 3 votes if I take out this and that. It's not supposed to be perfect, seriously.
We
folks.
appreciate that.
You're not in the historic district, and I'm trying, and I think if I'm Bill Slight, I'm saying to myself, you know something? Maybe I'll just pre-package the same ridiculous Stanford White-ish thing that I know no one's gonna disapprove, because you can't say, well, you know, it's too dissimilar.
That's your right.
Right. So,
It's not my right, but you know
so-
something, you're supposed to reward creativity, not monotony.
The clear of what we can and cannot do and what
I'm
we should
talking
and
about from a
shouldn't.
policy point of
Okay.
view.
I appreciate that. So, in any event, we can put it to a vote now and see how everybody votes. Okay. Evelyn, unless it's additive, the public had its chance to speak, so, like, to, if it's new material, a minute, if you would.
Just one word.
John, would you indulge her for?
No, she's had an opportunity.
Okay,
This is the
well,
woman
I'm
who's been
sorry, you know what,
working
you
with
know,
the federal
John,
board not to bring any lawsuits against the village.
John, it's not, I shouldn't have asked you, I'm sorry to put you in that position. The chair,
It's not my call, it's yours.
the chair
Object.
further recognizes the public. If anybody else in the public wishes to speak, they can come now. Evelyn, if you'd like to speak, you can. I only ask that it be.
Very briefly, we have a great deal of creativity and originality on the Gold Coast, on the beach. But whether this belongs, I so much like what you said, Mr. Gregory, whether this belongs on tiny local streets that are really their own unit is the thing that I think most of us are objecting to. It is so out of character, and thank you for speaking up. Thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you, Evelyn. So, we can vote now. John, you've heard everybody, and I'm satisfied with the landscaping plan, if you've written it in.
Jeff, I just
Yeah.
wanted to bring one other thing up to take into consideration. On the Hill Street property, he's close to the street.
Mhm.
These properties are not deep. Fred's property next door, if you see the angle on the back of ours, his property starts getting he's got a much bigger backyard. If we were able to set back off the road a little, but as you see, we're a little crammed as it is. You
Yeah.
know, we want to keep everything in sync, and I think the 40-foot was put there in the beginning because it is a good size, you know?
So, you know, and this is just a general comment, and it's, when you say you're cramped, you have backyard to do with what you want and what you don't. Not every property has to have a pool. It's your right to have one, but the board has the right, right, you can, right. But how the house looks on the property and whether the board votes for the house on that property is the board's decision. So, you know.
I'm gonna stop you right there.
No, you're not, because I'm
If I
not,
conform to the
John.
zoning setbacks, you have nothing to
Right.
say.
John, I appreciate
That's
you.
been litigated and decided,
I
Jeff.
hear you saying that
I
all-
don't know why I have to fight this battle constantly.
You're not
because
fighting it.
You're giving misinformation here.
Hi, John.
If I conform
I'm
to the
reading
setback,
right from the
it's the
code.
Ferrara case, and it says, if I conform to the setbacks, you have nothing to say.
That's-
This house conforms to the setback, it conforms to the height limitations, it conforms to the size limitations, you have no
Okay.
site plan authority.
John.
I don't know why we're talking about this stuff. And you know something?
Because we-
You're going against your charge as a member of this board to obey the laws of the state of New York and the village.
Okay, no further public comments. John's statement is duly noted. I make a motion that we vote on the property unless you want to adjourn.
Well, if I'm gonna adjourn, I'd like some direction. You can't just say it's too massive. What the hell does
John,
that
you
mean?
don't even know whether I'm
Why do
gonna,
you
how
have
I'm
to raise
gonna
your
vote.
voice to the board?
Okay,
Because it's an
that's-
offense. It's an offense as a
No, no,
taxpayer.
These
It's
bullying
an offense.
tactics.
No,
Just
John,
obscene.
gentlemen, John, we're willing to take a vote if you'd like us to take a vote, if you wish to
I have
adjourn.
no idea what your input is. One
I
person
just-
says, I'll vote for it with this. No, I'll
No,
vote for it with that, but
you-
not with this.
You didn't say that. Peter, do you have any objections that would have you vote no?
Just the rear,
No, so let me ask you a
No,
question.
he's answering. Don't interrupt him. Just the what?
the rear projecting bay that breaks the eave. I would prefer it not to break the eave. That's very specific. Maybe it's too specific.
And that's gonna cause a no vote?
Well, if that's gonna cause a no vote, we're gonna look at.
I know,
maybe
that's
doing
what
away
I'm
with that,
asking.
right?
That's what I'm trying to pull.
I know it's the back of the house.
I'm
I know, but
trying to
there are
pull
neighbors
the
from the
board,
back.
so,
There are
John,
people here who see the back.
trying to work with you. Cut me some slack here. Okay, I'm trying to work
Yeah,
with you.
fine. I got you. Thank you.
Peter, would you vote yes or no? Okay. Sarah, would you vote yes or no?
This polling, I don't find. very-
Well, I put it to a vote, and you're gonna have to vote yes or no, one
Well,
way or the other,
But
so.
rather than, I'd rather vote and vote. I think they've made marked improvements, and I would vote yes.
Okay.
I think you made a lot of improvements too, by the way. I mean,
I'm sorry.
I think you've made a lot of improvements too. And I happen to like the character of the house. And I share your dislike of the bread and butter crap we get every day. So it's the only thing in the back. It's the only thing I don't like. I'm sorry about that.
So if it wasn't a bay window, if it was flat to the.
No, I like the bay. It's just that it breaks the eave. Breaks the eave. And we have neighbors in the back who don't like, because it's, a lot of glass.
They cannot be able to say that. You don't have a vote, okay?
Okay, that's, all right, I know, and it's only one
I'm
person.
not no, I was talking to Bill, not you.
Look, John, all the same, look. John, the height of the window, nobody's looking out the top down. It's letting the light in, you know? It is popping that up above with that
I
soffit.
know, but it increases the scale of the, makes it kind of monumental from the back.
If we got rid of that bay in the back, would from a mass point of view, would it be something that you could live with, Jeff?
The mass has nothing for me to do with the back, so.
That's the difficulty, though. I see
No,
what
no,
you-
no, no. You don't know how I'm gonna vote, John. So, gentlemen,
I've said it before, the size and scale and mass of the windows in the center part of the house make it look commercial. It still
Okay,
does.
So if we got rid of this, I'm probably calling this, if we got rid of this top level of transom windows?
I think it's just the second floor windows look too big. That's
Yeah, but,
my
you know,
issue.
I toyed for a while
All
with
right.
taking out the side vents, but then it looks bizarre.
That's not, I'm not here to design your house for
I
you.
know
What
what
I'm
you're
saying
saying.
is the
No,
second
no.
floor.
You're effectively doing it, John.
But I disagree.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you've asked for specifics of why I don't, agree with the specs of the house. Well, there you have it.
Okay.
The massing and the size and the scale of the
I don't know,
windows
I
in the
don't even
center of
know
the
what
house.
massing means. I
Right,
don't.
right, okay.
Well, then,
So John offered up something that, could work. I mean, you wouldn't have a floor to ceiling, or you'd have at least a few feet up there. I don't know if that looks good or odd.
I'd rather take it back to the client and see if we can get rid of the thing in the back than leave that. I think we're gonna stand on that. I think that's
Okay.
tasteful and wonderful. We
Alright.
did exactly what you asked us to do.
So John,
With John, maybe I misunderstood you, but you were the only one who, you know.
Well, again, you've made great improvements from the very original plan. There's no doubt about that. No one's arguing with that. But from my perspective, it hasn't gone far enough.
so we're getting real close, it seems to you. Mark, anything,
Well, I kind of agree. I think you've made great strides, but I don't think it goes far enough for sort of the same reasons. I actually think I share my concern about the window in the back because the neighbors do see it from the backyard. And I actually think the size and scale of this house compared to the houses that surround it, whether that's the front or the back, they're all impacted. And I think the back has a strong impact on the back door neighbors.
so John, I would hope that that's sufficient feedback, and I think we're getting close, and I think some of the things you offered up could very well work.
I'll leave you with this. What I would recommend to the client is to work with this, Frank and Bill, sorry, but you know something, I know a little bit more about the relative powers and bargaining points here. So I'd recommend to the client to get rid of that, but I think we've gone so far based upon, with the possible exception of John's input, we've gone so far to try to respond to the boards. I don't think we can do away with that. So let's adjourn it. Let me talk to the client about some of the changes that you made. I don't think you're gonna see a different facade. And if my architectural definitions are correct, the facade is the front elevation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't think you're gonna see, I think it'd be cruel to ask us to, given us all we've given up. John, I understand. I guess I'll listen to the tapes again, and you say you've stood firm on this, but we'll talk about the back. Bill, we'll have a conversation with the client.
Look, and
Artists all have patrons, so we have to listen to the client, so.
so, and you may want to you don't have to show it with us, but you may just want to experiment with what John was suggesting, just to see how it looks. But
It's
you
been
don't have to
through
tell
so many
me.
iterations, and I think to not see how far this has come, you can't,
Okay.
you're
All right.
supposed to design within a standard, you don't get to design our house.
We're not looking
suggesting
to.
that.
All we're trying to do is get votes. So I hear the applicant's request for adjournment to the
sounds
next
good.
meeting, and then Frank, that'll give you time to specify the landscape plan. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for the changes you made, the progress. Bill, thank you.
Forget about it.
So what are we doing with are we making the garage stone just a watermark? Peter?
Yeah, as
They're taking
Mr.
it down
DeVito
the
was saying,
foundation
just bring it up to the foundation line, like the height of the porch.
And you don't love the stone on the columns, but you'll live with them?
I'll live with it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, thank you. All right.
Going to end
Okay.
up with a village full of camels.
Oh, no, come on. Bill, please, it doesn't aid the
Okay,
dialogue.
so I hear the applicant's request to adjourn to the next meeting. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, all
Aye.
votes?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.